Hello and welcome back to Lorehammer, a 40K podcast where we like to ramble about all aspects of the lore. Joining me today is Court.
Hey, Mark. Good to be here. Thanks for having me on. It's been a couple weeks since we jumped on this. So happy New Year, happy Christmas, happy everything to you guys.
Happy life, I think, ultimately.
Happy life.
We all made it to another year. And just kind of start back up of the live streams, which is nice. I've been missing it. I know me and Logan did one on Friday, but it just felt like then I had a weekend. So it wasn't the true start, but Logan's here as well.
Yeah, thanks for having me again. It's been a long 3 days since I've last seen you, but glad we're here.
Yeah, your body aches for me. I know. I've heard the messages before.
All the time. You can join our weird multi-guy relationship thing we have going. Court's the centerpiece, but
I am the centerpiece, and there are body pillows involved.
There are. That's right. Body pillows.
Well, I guess that's the kind of podcast you can expect. We're going to be making silly jokes about us pretending we get any type of women, but we just talk about Warhammer instead. That meme of just, guy with body pillow yelling at it, can't escape it. Yep. It's nice. Welcome to Lorehammer. We got a little bit of housekeeping before we do our Tau episode tonight. It's going to be about Tau-Va, the goddess of the greater good. So we're going to dive into some of her mysteries and all that. But yeah, let's do some housekeeping. Discord, come join us. We just uploaded a bunch of RPGs called the Stone and Steel RPG. And we did that over Discord. And we're talking about maybe doing some more RPGs over the Discord and uploading them. Maybe do some parallel adventures. Hard to say what we're going to get up to. But definitely come join the Discord and we're going to get up to some type of fun, I'm sure.
Yeah. Tangent number one then, speaking of RPGs, I just picked this baby up, the One Ring RPG.
Okay.
Lord of the Rings RPG core rulebook. Fantastic. I am psyched. I don't know where this is going to lead, but I'm excited. So maybe we'll bring this out it'll lead to the Middle Earth, but maybe it'll lead out into the community some way. So speaking of community though, Patreon. Guys, if you're not on Patreon and not supporting the show as a patron on our Patreon, please do so. If you guys dig what we do here, join the Imperial Tithe, support the show. Your contributions help keep this going, truly. And so I want to thank all of our patrons on Patreon. If you guys want the ad-free version of the podcast, it's only $2.50 a month. And if you want the video version, so you can see all of our beautiful mugs here and get a chance to hang out with us, it's only $5 a month. And Logan's going to learn you a little bit more on that.
Yeah, if you're a member of the Imperial Tithe and you're at that $5 a month tier, you can join us during the show in our live chat room. You also have the opportunity to be a call-in guest, so you yourself can participate in the podcast as we film it. So remember, guys, go to Patreon, join the Tithe, and you can come hang out with us.
Yeah, a lot of fun. Cool. So let's get into this episode. Maybe let's go around the circle and let's talk about how Tau-Va has bettered your life. I know for me personally, since I learned about Tau-Va, I've been feeling more unified, more solidified. Feel like I have more arms than I should. What's your vibe on Tau-Va?
I'm ready to feel that way with you, and because I'm not there. I'm agnostic in this way, I guess, maybe, and because truly I know very little. So I'm here to learn. I would like a couple more arms, so that would be cool.
Yeah, no, they're very useful, man. Very useful. You can hold a child with one, make dinner with the other.
Yeah,
they're perfect.
Sweet. Okay, well then, consider me ready to bathe in the light of the greater good.
I think everyone is welcome into this wonderful Tau cult that we have started because, the Tau now have an official kind of pseudo-religion almost. Maybe not quite there, but there's definitely warp entities being ready to be worshipped.
We'll see.
Yeah, I was going to say the first I ever heard of this was when you sent us the script, so I'm ready for anything. Literally the first I'm hearing of this, but okay.
Cool, yeah.
Tau propaganda.
Yeah, like this is a pretty new occurrence. We'll say this has happened in the last 5 years, this little update to the lore. And for a lot of us people who are older than that, remember back when there were no gods that the Tau had, they didn't have a psychic presence, so how would you create gods? But here we are nonetheless. How did that happen? It's actually kind of an interesting story how they went about doing it. It involves more than just the tower. It involves many Xenos and a certain situation, we'll call it. We'll wait for it, though. But I thought before we get into the story of Tau Va, the goddess of the greater good and the fourth sphere of expansion, we're just going to carry on from our last episode a little bit and expand a little more on how the warp operates and kind of what it is, and lay that base ground just in case this is the first kind of episode. Okay, what is the warp? The warp, also known as the immaterium or the Sea of Souls, is an alternate dimension that exists parallel to the material universe in the Warhammer 40k universe. Unlike the physical world, the warp is a realm of pure psychic energy, constantly shifting and roiling with unpredictable currents. It is both a tool and a danger, as it serves as both a medium for faster than light travel via warp drives, allowing ships to traverse vast distances in the galaxy through its chaotic tides. However, the warp is not merely a neutral space. It is teeming with psychic phenomenon, dangerous entities, raw emotion, making it a place of immense peril. And as we get deeper into this story, we'll learn about how the Tau have an incident with psychic warp drives and what happens to them. The warp is intrinsically tied to the psychic energy and emotions of living beings. Every sentient thought, feeling, and action has a ripple effect in the warp, manifesting as currents and storms of psychic energy. Over millennia, a collective emotions of countless civilizations have shaped the warp into a realm where the strongest and darkest emotions, hatred, desire, despair, and ambition, have given birth to powerful entities known as the Chaos Gods. These entities, such as Khorne, Chin, Nurgle, and Slaanesh, are manifestations of the most primal aspects of life, and they seek to influence or corrupt the material realm for their own inscrutable goals.
Yeah, and that intrinsic psychic energy is what we were talking about last week, where if you stub your toe and you're a latent psyker, you might explode or open a rift in your living room.
Yeah, and I always harp on how the warp is like a manifestation of emotions, but you're right, it's more than just emotions. It can be actions as well. So it's this parallel universe that all these psychic emotions are being drawn into, and then they form. And the powerful, strongest of them will start to form their own identities and become these own creatures. For the inhabitants of the Warhammer 40k galaxy, the warp represents a double-edged sword. Psychers, individuals with natural connection to the warp, can harness its energies to perform miraculous feats such as telekinesis, precognition, or summoning destructive forces. However, this connection also exposes them to the dangers such as possession by demons or psychic backlash. The Imperium of Man heavily regulates psychers and uses the warp for astropathic communication and navigation, relying on specialized psychers known as navigators to guide ships through its treacherous currents. Despite these safeguards, the warp travel remains risky, with ships sometimes being lost, emerging in the wrong place, or falling prey to demonic incursions. In the larger narrative,
what is psychic backlash? I'm curious. Like I know that we've kind of seen this like on the table doing like hazard rolls and things like that, and we've seen a little bit in videos, and I'm just so curious as to like how this actually manifests. Like the psychic backlash, like you reach out, you do your thing, and then what? Like you get like an instant headache or something, or you explode. And I guess it's on different levels, but like it just seems like such an interesting concept, like the psychic backlash.
I think I would probably compare it to like cabling a signal. So you're sending a signal out into the warp to get whatever power or whatever you want, and the signal you get back is a lot stronger than what you can handle. So it just pops you when it gets back to you.
Kind of like if we look at the Startide video, like when the psyker's like channeling in and then gets kind of caught up in the what would be like the chaos forces or something, and then like he's like twitching, and then his eyes light up, and then the dude punches him in the face and shoots him.
Yeah, that would be psychic backlash, or kind of from the secret level when Titus pushes the thing back.
Haven't seen it yet.
That sounds
Oh,
like
boy.
a problem, bro. No,
I
I'm
know
kidding.
it is. It is. It is absolutely. I need to jump on it.
So carve out 20 minutes after this. That's your homework for tonight.
Okay.
Yeah, you
Deal.
got to do it.
I
Yeah.
know.
You can't live like that, man. You can't make us live like that.
This is my psychic backlash by not watching it. I just feel like I'm
Yeah.
incomplete.
Yeah, here's a live example of psychic backlash. Congratulations.
Here it is. I've answered my own question. Thanks, guys.
I loved the Fantasy Flight game RPGs. They had a great Perils of the Warp table. I pulled it up real quick, and it's based on a D100. So there's so many different results, but some are just a dark foreboding. Some are memory worm, where all people within line of sight of the psyker forget something valuable. Whoop, just like that. That's a psychic phenomenon. It gets a little darker, haunting breezes, eventually distorted reflections. If you're lucky enough, maybe you'll see some warp ghosts along the way, because that is option number 55 to 56. So they got a lot of really cool options in there, but they manifest in. It's the warp, so we don't know how it manifests. It will manifest however it wants to manifest.
Right. Yeah. Cool.
Yeah, I'm just going through some more. The gibbering, that's you just turn into an uncontrolled gibbering mess of warp energy.
Yeah.
Very nice. Yeah, very cool book. In the larger narrative of Warhammer 40k, the warp serves as a metaphysical representation of chaos, potential, and the consequences of unbridled emotion. It is the battleground of both literal and ideological conflicts, with countless factions attempting to harness, control, or survive its influence. Whether it manifests as a source of humanity's greatest hopes or its darkest nightmares, the warp is an omnipresent and integral force shaping the destiny of the galaxy. Yeah, what we know from the warp is it can manifest all types of different things, from the big four chaos gods that we know about, but also sometimes it can manifest other things like the Eldar. They've manifested Yanid, or at least have started to give psychic birth to him, which is not as big of a chaos god, but still chaos god.
Do we think, since the warp is so influential, that it has any sort of intelligence itself, or is it just a vat of energy that breeds these monsters?
Yeah, that's
I think to give it intelligence is maybe putting it in a, I don't want to say it's putting it in a box, but I think GW's done a great job of having it be kind of nebulous and almost not comprehensible, unless we're talking about it like it's a sea of emotions. But it's like it's an ocean. But I think to give it that intelligence almost feels like an injustice to what it is, because then it's deciding, versus it being some sort of like, oh shit, we made this, Slaanesh. Okay, like the birth of Slaanesh, and like that was driven by the hedonism of the Eldar and everything, and just how terrible that was. And for that to be a decision on somebody else's part, and by somebody else, I just mean the warp, it feels less, how do I put this intelligently? Oh, fuck. Like it feels, like it.
Very intelligent.
Yeah. Like
I get the vibe.
You're a kid, and you got cookies up in the cabinet. And so you got to stand up on the counter in order to get them. You slip and you break your jaw. That's the warp. You slip and your dad catches you and you get grounded. That's his decision to do so, not as consequential. It's very weird, but I feel like if you give the warp intelligence and it makes decisions, it doesn't feel as like regretful, like fuck, we did this. You know what I mean?
Sure.
What if Tzeentch is the warp? And it just because Tzeentch never knows what Tzeentch is doing. What if Tzeentch is part of the warp? We don't know.
Tzeentch does know what Tzeentch is doing. They
Does
just
he
change.
He's just not going to tell you.
Yeah. Why
does he though?
You don't get to know. Well, here, maybe we talk about how the warp operates. How about that? Maybe that'll give us a little insight. How does the warp operate? So the warp operates as a parallel dimension to the physical universe, composed entirely of psychic energy and shaped by the emotions, thoughts, and desires of all sentient beings. It is a fluid, ever-shifting realm with no fixed geography, no concept of time, and no natural laws as understood in the material world. Instead, the warp is a chaotic and turbulent ocean, of raw power. Good album, Iggy Pop. Where spatial distances and temporal sequences are meaningless. This instability allows the warp to serve as a medium for faster than light travel. Ships can enter the warp, traverse what seems like shorter distances compared to real space, and emerge elsewhere in the galaxy. However, the nature of this journey is fraught with unpredictability, as the currents and tides of the warp are shaped by its chaotic essence. I think that gives a really that Mark, so many times you've written stuff that just summarizes parts of 40K so well, and I think the warp sometimes is very easy to describe and at times very difficult. And I think that paragraph there, like, guys, if you ever want to tell your friends what the warp is, there it is. Because a lot of times we just kind of chalk it up to it's chaos energy and like you can travel through it and whatnot. It's swirling, but I think that was pretty spot on. I think that's lovely.
Nice.
So what do you got?
I just always think about just how different or how similar it is to some things that we can kind of relate to. And black holes, I was talking about this the other time, and how close that is to this, like jumping through the warp. Man, I keep seeing on my fucking Google like all these quantum physics things that are gonna blow your mind in 2025, and somebody's discovered the warp and all these different fucking articles, but who the fuck knows what any of them are talking about?
Yeah. Wow.
The algorithm now thinks you have a deep-seated desire to know everything about dark matter in the universe. And all you did was watch one podcast.
Like, I just stumbled randomly on one video. Jeez. But the warp is so interesting. Like, it's so easy to just chalk it up as unknown, but it does have some rules, has some limits to it, and in other places no limits at all, for sure.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Navigating the warp relies on specialized individuals and technology to manage its unpredictable nature. Navigators, highly specialized psychers born with a unique third eye, can perceive the currents and hazards of the warp, guiding ships through its dangerous flows. The Imperium of Man employs the Astronomicon, a massive psychic beacon powered by the Emperor of Mankind, which we definitely touched upon a few times in previous episodes. They employ the Astronomicon to provide navigators with a reference point to orient their journeys, much like a light beacon, of course. So even with these tools, warp travel is inherently risky. Ships are protected from the warp's hostile energies by Geller fields, which create a psychic barrier to keep out demons and other malevolent entities. If a ship's Geller field fails, it becomes vulnerable to chaotic and demonic incursions, potentially leading to the crew's corruption, madness, or complete destruction.
There is that one famous meme that's like when the Geller field fails on your ship and everybody's panicking, but then it has an orc ship and it says when the Geller field fails and the orcs are getting so excited because the demons are coming into their
Bring
ship.
on the demons. Yeah.
Yeah, I still picture the orc flying around on a crowdlid having the best time, his little warp ride. That's nice for him. Pretty cool. Geller fields are wild. Without them, none of this would be possible.
Yep. Yeah, the operation of the warp is deeply tied to psychic resonance of the material universe. Sentient beings' thoughts and emotions ripple into the warp, creating disturbances that manifest as psychic storms, calm eddies, or dangerous warp rifts. Over time, the collective emotions of civilizations have given rise to powerful entities, the Chaos Gods, who dominate vast regions of the warp. These gods and their demonic followers manipulate the warp's currents and attempt to extend their influence into the material realm, often targeting psychers or weak points in reality, such as warp storms or rifts. The presence of these gods ensures that the warp is not merely chaotic, but also profoundly malevolent, filled with entities that feed on and exploit the emotions that created them. I feel like I know a few people like that.
That's
There's no longer, it's not like energy vampires in the Office setting. You just have like malevolent, chaotic gods,
from another reality, just feeding on you.
Yeah.
Like that.
Yeah, you just start like, Sharon, you're such a zinch. Oh my gosh.
Sharon, you're such a zinch.
Bill, quit being Nurgle.
Quit being a Nurgle.
Yeah.
My coworker that sits right behind me at the office, he's 100% corn. Because I like being in the office with him, because we'll just be sitting and I'll just randomly hear his earbud just bounce off the desk. And then I'm like, ooh, who's he going to go yell at? And he just slides his chair up and goes and walks off to yell at someone or grabs the boss like, I need to talk to you. It's just so funny to sit there and listen to it.
Nice.
Sounds like a real fun guy to be around, I'm sure.
He actually is if you're good at your job. So
I feel like that's corn for sure. Go
100%.
Give me skulls and blood and we're cool.
100%.
There we go, easy peasy.
Yeah. Well, ultimately, the warp operates as both a vital mechanism and a dire threat in the Warhammer 40k galaxy. It enables faster than light travel and psychic phenomena, but at the cost of immense danger. Its unpredictable and hostile nature reflects the darker aspects of existence: chaos, ambition, and conflict, while serving as a battleground for the eternal struggle between order and disorder. For those who rely on the warp, it is both a tool to be mastered and a peril to be feared, a fundamental part of life in the grim darkness of the far future. Man, I know that it's about the warp as like an ocean, and we've described it that way. But if you've ever seen or even read like old books or seen films on what it was like for early exploration, Master and Commander, even, something like that.
Great movie.
Yes, so good. The beginning of John Adams, the HBO series, like, it's fucking terrifying and dangerous to sail across these seas, and it parallels so well, I think. And GW does a great job of drawing like kind of the classic perils of exploration in our known world and amplifying it, much like the warp would.
Yeah.
Ooh.
So what is the warp equivalent of scurvy?
That would
turning
be
into one of the Nurgle beasts.
Nurgle's rot. Yeah, Nurgle's rot, maybe something like that.
Okay,
Court and I are on the
nice.
same wavelength like Nurgle.
Yeah, I don't think you can stave off Nurgle's rot with some citrus though. Like, I don't think the lemons are gonna do it.
It has to be sit.
Well, you need some
blessed
candles
by the
but...
sisterhood. That can save it all.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. So the psychic realm, the immaterium, a realm of the spiritual and metaphysical, exists in a shadow cast by the emotions, thoughts, and actions of intelligent mortals. That's apparently important. Intelligent mortals. It is not merely a separate dimension, but a reflection and a distortion of the material universe, endlessly shaped and sustained by the psychic imprints of countless sentient minds. While influence of a single soul is negligible, the combined weight of billions, entire species, sculpts the very essence of the warp. It is a tapestry woven from the collective despair, hope, faith, and fury of the mortal plane. What emerges from this is a dark and mutable sea, its chaotic storms fueled by the ceaseless turmoil of the galaxy.
I want to maybe argue a point there. The influence of a single soul is negligible. I agree on the most part, but don't you think that if one soul, somebody like Gilliman, if Gilliman was slain and thrown into the warp, I'm sure it wouldn't cause huge, crazy, catastrophic changes and whatnot. But don't you think something like that would be so influential warp wise? I don't even just mean like 40K politics, warfare, all that stuff. But do you think
like
that could change a lot?
It could. Just imagine what the Imperium would feel like, that sense of loss all of a sudden. Is it possible to get like another god birth with such like a raw emotion? Or like what's another good one? Like maybe betrayal, like maybe another loyalist Primarch that we thought was a loyalist came back and killed him. Then it would be a sense of betrayal that maybe could manifest in the warp. But I know what you're saying, like the one soul alone, like how much sway does that really have? But it's a ripple for sure.
Yeah, and I think you're right. Like maybe the event, the triggering event, isn't Gilliman's soul going into the warp, but it's him dying and the emotions that are felt by the Imperium across the galaxy that would shift things. So maybe the butterfly effect a little bit.
Was
like
there that feeling when Sanguinius was slain?
See, that's what I'm wondering.
Yeah, you could always go like, how did everyone find out? Did everyone find out at the right time? How long did it take for people to find out Sanguinius was dead? Even probably not broadcasting it too much. Like the chapter must know. Eventually it gets out. But it'd be like a slow trickle across the galaxy. It's not the most important piece of news. It's super important, but in those times, who knows?
Yep.
Contrary to its current state, the Immaterium may not always have been so turbulent. The rampant conflicts, misery, and endless wars that define the material realm have polluted the warp, transforming it into the volatile, malevolent domain it is today. It is a mirror of mortal existence, fractured by strife and consumed by suffering. Within this psychic crucible, emotions and beliefs can achieve sentience. When devotion, fear, or hatred swells to a monumental proportion, it can birth entities within the warp, shadows made manifest by the collective will of a species. Many of these ephemeral beings fade into obscurity when the emotions or convictions that form them dissipate, yet the strongest endure. These entities become self-perpetuating forces, spreading the thoughts, events, and ideologies that sustain their power. So if a chaos god falls in the warp and no one's there to hear it, did it ever really exist?
Oh, the classic teachings of Logan. I love it. So good.
Yeah, that's interesting though. And I don't think we really touched apart that. Like we touched about why in the last episode, why the chaos gods want souls to feed them, but we didn't really touch on if they don't get that, they will fade into obscurity and disappear. That's a little cool tidbit.
Yeah. It's that parasite relationship with us where they can't kill us all. They can never totally do that because they need some of us still. So we're lucky in that way, I guess.
But some of them are based on such like integral parts of humanity that I don't think that could ever happen. That's like the tinfoil hat thing of like, if we just stop murdering each other and we just stop killing things, then Khorne will just disappear. Yeah, but unfortunately, like as flawed beings, like we're just going to kill things, and we're just going to.
Even if, let's say, we like never killed any more humans ever again, but we still were gaking at billions of chickens a day.
Yeah.
Khorne doesn't care where the blood flows.
There you go.
True. Khorne does not care from where the blood flows.
I just pictured Khorne as Colonel Sanders. Thanks, guys. That's just
that's what the
it's his greatest source of power.
Yeah,
it's corn fried chicken. I don't know. Yeah, don't know who said Kentucky. That's just weird.
No.
I just noticed in chat, I didn't see this earlier, that when Sanguinius was slain, there was a psychic wave that hit the Blood Angels specifically. So they felt the impact of his death.
Yeah, for sure. Like they have the Black Rage or whatever from that. There's the two. There's the Black Rage and there's the other one. I messed this one up the other day. People got mad. Now what am I going to do about it? I can't remember him.
I feel like that would happen if any Primarch was slain. Your whole legion or chapter is going to feel that ripple effect.
Yeah.
did the Imperial Fists feel Dorn's alleged death?
He never died, first of all. So the story goes.
Yeah, but if they would have felt a second, now we're debunking other conspiracies not in this episode. If the Imperial Fist never felt their Primarch die, he's clearly still alive.
He's out there. I will find him.
There you go.
Every episode's a Primarch episode if you try hard enough.
Yeah, it can be. Let's talk about different Xenos and their effect on the warp. Different Xenos species in Warhammer have unique interactions with the warp, influenced by their physiology, culture, and psychic presence. Some species are deeply connected to the warp, using it as a source of power or sustenance, while others are almost entirely disconnected, creating a stark contrast in how they influence and are influenced by the Immaterium. These variations demonstrate the diverse ways of life across the galaxy and how it's adapted to and resisted the warp's passive influence. Yeah, like it's interesting to think about like warp creatures, and I think we got a section about that coming eventually, maybe. But like they got their whole little ecosystem going that lives alongside, this parallel ecosystem that we have, and how like it evolved maybe emotionally alongside of us, or maybe at first these little entities were manifested through curiosity, and that's how they're surviving. Then got a little more darker, and they kind of evolved emotionally with the races as they evolved. The warp, it just, who knows what would happen? Like, okay, then just the Eldar or the Eldari are amongst the most profoundly connected to the warp. Their highly psychic nature making them both powerful and vulnerable. Their emotion resonates strongly in the warp, and their fall gives birth to the chaos gods Slaanesh, forever tying their fate to the Immaterium. To protect themselves, the Eldar used soul stones to capture their essence upon death, preventing their souls from being consumed by Slaanesh. The webway, an ancient network of tunnels through the warp, allowed the Eldar to travel without fully entering its dangers, showcasing the mastery over this volatile realm. However, their reliance on psychic powers and the warp leaves them constantly at risk of corruption and destruction.
The tragedy of the Eldar being so directly tied to the warp, I think, is such a story. Like you give this race of Xenos reason to almost mourn their existence. Like they treasure it so much because they create these soul stones, but at the same time, it's like we talked before, you guys did this. Like you birthed Slaanesh. This is so much your fault. And there's a sense of, I think, like when you mention Eldar or Eldari and whatnot, just there always seems to be the sense of like the mourning, the dying race, kind of this almost regrettable, mournful existence. I think it's really cool. It just ties so well to the warp because of their origin, if you will, or not even origin, but just like their decisions and how it's influenced the warp.
Yeah, and now there are some that are trying to like negate that responsibility and create Yanid, but that's a different story. But like the Eldar, it's interesting. Like they have that such a strong impact on it. I kept on seeing it worded as resonating strongly in the warp. So it wasn't necessarily that they created a lot. It just had this long lingering power. Is kind of what I was picking up consistently. I was going through all these other races too, and kind of seeing how they might have worded them just so subtly like that. And keep your eye out for that, and maybe we'll learn something new.
And if you think about it too, what's interesting is like you have the Eldar or the Eldari, again, whatever you want to call it, being one of the oldest races, and how long their influence has happened from the warp. And then we're going to get into the orcs in a moment, but like them being created by the old ones and being so old themselves, their influence on the warp itself has I would say greater, not responsibility, but greater impact, just because of the amount of years that they've been around. you know?
Yeah. Yeah, it's a good thing they had good mentors in the old ones who were like tried to teach them to be responsible, like because they went like 60 million years before they did a big oopsie and created Slaanesh, which
It's pretty good streak.
That's a long time.
Pretty good streak.
That's a pretty good streak. If you had that up on a workplace safety board, like 60 million years since our last warp deity was born,
Yes.
That's a good ratio.
Then after they did it, someone had to reset it to 0. It's been 0 days since we've made a god.
Damn it. Damn it, Bill, and your gurgly disease.
Oh,
yeah.
So good.
Yeah, so who knows where we're at with that? That's who knows. I lost my thought, but I like it.
I like it.
In contrast, the orcs' influence on the warp is chaotic and instinctive. Orcs generate a psychic field called the Wog that is fueled by the collective belief and energy. This field impacts reality, making orc technology function and enhancing their warlike abilities. While orcs are less susceptible to demonic corruption, their crude manipulation of the warp is a reflection of their simplistic, violent-driven mindset. This psychic collective power is a danger on its own right, and it can manifest in unpredictable ways, especially during large-scale WoG campaigns. Yeah, the orcs, they operate very differently. Like, they almost have a... Let's say, we'll go back to this warp analogy, and I don't think I've ever used this one before, but let's say the orcs have a little reservoir off from the ocean. So they got their own psychic pool that they can kind of tap into it. Yeah, it's still all warp energy that feels this kind of reservoir, but it's only for the orcs, that little pool. We were talking about how the Eldar, they have to have soul stones in order to, when they die, not get devoured by Slaanesh. And I think, yeah, because they have this, like, their own little psychic pool, when they die, they also go over to this and maintain their orc wog energy.
Now I'm just picturing a bunch of orcs like at the beach playing in like a tide pool, but it just happens to be glowing and they're just splashing in it, and they're triggering like weird psychic things because of their tie to the warp behind them. Like one dreams of like a giant rubber duck and then just like appears in the back or something.
Starts mauling everyone around it.
Yeah.
Perfect.
And there's been some really good discussions on previous Lorehammer episodes about how the orcs specifically can manifest in unpredictable ways, as you said, especially during like large scale wars with the warp. So maybe we can put like a reference in the show notes of where that would be. But I remember hearing and understanding a lot more about how the orcs tie to the warp itself in previous episodes. So
yeah.
I was picturing when you said they have their own pool in the ocean of the warp, that they're on like a cruise ship that has a pool in it, and they're just drawing from that and ignoring the ocean around them.
That's fine too. That might work even more. And if they sink their own ship, whatever, they're damned to the warps of the ocean. I like that.
Or
then they're like
cruise ship.
They go in the water and the sharks are circling them. They're like, "We're not in the water with you. You're in the water with us." Wah! Just start chasing the sharks.
Yes.
Nice. Some species, like the Necron and the Tyranids, have unique relationships with the warp that set them apart. The Necrons are almost entirely severed from the warp, relying on highly advanced technology and their disdain for the immaterium to remain immune to its effects. They view the warp as entities as anathema, using devices like the Satan pylons to dampen psychic activity and sever connections to the warp. On the other hand, the Tyranids represent a paradoxical relationship. While they are psychically active, especially through their hive-minded synapse creatures, their presence in the warp is disruptive. The shadow in the warp, a psychic phenomenon accompanying Tyranid fleets, creates a null zone that drowns out other psychic signals, isolating prey and making warp travel and communication nearly impossible. This effect highlights their predatory dominance and unique manipulation in the immaterium.
I love that you just read the two greatest armies collective in there. Like I heard you say was the Necrons and the Tyranids are just the best. And I
Yes.
couldn't agree more, Mark. I think that shows a lot of growth on your part, and I
This
really
podcast is full of misinformation and lies.
Oh
Yeah,
man.
no, I love it. I love how both of them, like every race has their own way of dealing with them. Some are just like, I'm not dealing with it at all. Like the Necron, they're just gonna build pylons across the galaxy and try to cut it off completely. With the Tyranids, they have their own way of, cutting it off, or even just using it to send out their kind of psychic scream that essentially cuts everything off. These varied interactions within the warp underscore the diversity of Xeno species and their adaptations in the galaxy. Whether through mastery, instinct, resilience, or resistance, or disruption, each species' relationship with the warp shapes their identity and role for the 40K universe. From the psychic artistry of the Eldar to nullifying presence of the Tyranids, these effects demonstrate the vast, unpredictable nature of the Immaterium when encountered by the galaxy's myriad of alien civilizations. Yeah, this is going to be very useful to know. When we do eventually get to the Tau portion, we will learn about how many different Tau species not species, but minor Xenos had allied with them. And, you just can imagine every one of these different races has its own slightly different way that they interact with the warp, making them all kind of special. And I always even think about like how are Eldar better souls than human souls? And maybe like I was saying, it is that they just resonate a little longer. Where human souls, maybe it flares more. It's that quick burst. But yeah, there's everyone just kind of relate. Everyone has their own soul for sure out there.
I think human souls are like drive-through. Like it's gonna fill you up for a moment, and it's okay. but an Eldar soul is going to be like the finest wine and the greatest meal you've ever had. And I think there's a difference there because they are essentially immortal, and their being, their soul itself is, I don't want to say it's like has a greater purity, but they have greater psychic abilities. They have greater physical capabilities as far as just naturally, right? They have the ability to live forever. And they were created by something greater than themselves, where if you look at, kind of humanity in the way of the 40K galaxy, it's like we're kind of a mistake, right? So yeah. Eldar are going to taste a little bit better,
a little more scrumptious. Yeah,
a little more scrumptious.
The Xenos propaganda right now is high.
Yeah, I like that way though to look at it. It's how do the races affect the warp, but also what happens when those races die? Like, is it that longer lasting soul? Yummy, yummy, yummy. Yeah. What is the best tasting soul?
Would a human soul that's lived a long time, like Dante's soul, would that be super delicious? Like fine aged Wagyu, just because he's been around for so long and he's not
just
a
imagine
traditional
Eldar. Just imagine like Korn got a hold of it. And it's just like that huge long lifespan of soul memory that he consumes of just war. Delicious. Delicioso.
He'd like it so much.
There's going to be different flavor choice. It's a palette, guys. Like, think about it. Like, if Mortarion somehow, and was to die or whatever, his soul goes to the warp and is reformed or whatever, it comes back to demonhood. There's a bitterness. There's a bitter gooiness, right?
I think he'd be sour.
But then, I kind of think, you'd be like a sour funk, right? But then you get somebody like Gilliman, and you've got this strong, robust taste to it, and it's very hearty. It's like a soup that's going to keep you warm all throughout winter, right? But then Korn is going to be spicy as shit. He's going to bring the spice, the heat,
I think Zinch would be the spicy one.
Chicken. Who?
Zinch would be the spicy one because you don't know what you're going to get. One bite's going to be normal, and next bite's going to be insanely hot.
Zinch is the mystery airhead. Food.
Zinch
is the mystery airhead that has the question mark on it, and you're just like, well, I don't know. Let's roll the dice.
The Chaos Cookbook. Grimaldus says.
Hell yeah!
Yeah, I was gonna say Grimaldus is asking for the Chaos Cookbook.
Here we go.
Yeah.
Here we go.
I also like this comment from Skeleton. Oh, mention the Tyranids brought up a thought from last episode. Would the fact that the Tyranids disrupt the warp mean that it's an adaptation from their last galaxy and thus prove the warp in other galaxies?
That's interesting because then it does that mean that the warp changes galaxy to galaxy? And I'm sure it could, right?
Or is the warp the conduit between galaxies?
Dun, dun, dun.
Like there's one warp that touches all these galaxies, because no one, to my knowledge, no one goes exploring the warp, so they don't know how far it really goes or where it could lead.
Yeah. Like, we're talking about all these different Xenos and how they affect it. Like a galaxy over might not have ever even had to interact with it in the first place and never even developed psychically. Like the Emperor was trying to take the humans on a psychic journey, and that was his end goal for all of them. But yeah, if like galaxies took a different like evolutionary path, maybe they never even generated enough emotion over that way to have anything manifest. And then like, Khorne can't just like jump, even Khorne and gods can't jump between galaxies. Like they don't have enough energy for that. While space is like a weird thing to describe, it still has like its kind of locations almost.
And I'm sure the defining factor really is how much life is in each galaxy, because that kind of directly correlates to how much influence would be for the warp.
Yeah. The other thing is the Tyranids could have just adapted that thing really quick. Maybe on the way into the galaxy, they were picking up these psychic signals and learned about it over their slow drift. Hard to say. Maybe even they came into the galaxy and like psychic powers, they just hate it. They can't understand it, and they just like are screaming, and that's how they deal with it. Like it just is like, who knows? It's the hive mind. We don't know for sure. But
tinfoil hat time
proves anything. Yeah.
Tyranids are just a chaos manifestation of the warp for hunger. That's all.
So we did a reverse. Yeah. Oh god.
So if they're hungry, then one could conclude that they're gluttonous, and if they're gluttonous, that means
no.
Therefore, the Tyranids are a Slaaneshi army.
You're talking about heresy earlier. You need to shut your mouth.
No, I'm right. It's hard being the only one who's right today, but I'm managing, guys. I'm powering through it.
Yeah, you take it.
I don't know if the audio listeners could hear both of your eyes roll at the perfect same time, but it was pretty funny on camera.
Yeah, it's good. Gosh. Also, if you're on Patreon, we're going to have a muted version where he's not even in this episode. So
that's a special feature. Yeah, we've been rolling out.
Yeah, I was going to say
not that's an ad-free version.
Yeah, it's like the $100 Patreon tier. Logan won't be there.
Oh, I love you. I've missed you so much.
Oh yeah, man. Audio listeners don't know. I just made a heart with my hands.
Just in the heart.
And he made one back. Yeah. But instead we're just sitting here quiet.
No, yeah. He also just blew a kiss to me. Fact. Can't argue it. There we go. All right, here we go. Birthing gods in the war.
I heard it.
The chaos gods were born from the collective psychic energy and emotions of sentient beings across the galaxy. Their existence arising as a direct consequence of the warp's nature as a psychic mirror of the materium. Over millennia, the intense emotions, desires, and conflicts of countless civilizations shaped and fed the immaterium, leading to the coalescence of powerful entities that embodied specific aspects of life. These entities, known as the chaos gods, represent, or if you're in chaos, you just call them gods, represent extreme manifestations of emotions and concepts. Khorne, the god of blood and war, thrives on violence and rage. Tzeentch, the god of change, embodies ambition, deception, and knowledge. Nurgle, the god of decay, draws power from despair and endurance. And Slaanesh, the god of excess, feeds on desire and indulgence. Each was formed during critical periods of psychic upheaval and emotional intensity, reflecting the dark and primal forces of the galaxy. Ooh.
Yeah, we've talked a lot of times about like in different editions, the gods have changed how they were made and when they were made. In some editions, they were during the Middle Ages, during the Dark Age of Tech or Dark Ages, that Khorne and Nurgle were made. It's interesting to think like when they came out with these kind of things and like how true it might still ring, or what they were going for originally with how the warp operated. I just think of the scale. We've talked about how did humans manifest Khorne and Nurgle in the Dark Ages. And later in this episode, like we have, I don't want to spoil it, but just remember this statement and we'll call back to it of how does a small amount of people cause such a big event?
Interesting. And the buildup of it too. I think the big event is the birth, as we talk about, but that's just hundreds and thousands of years just getting to that point. But
yeah, and that's true too, for sure.
Yeah.
It's interesting because we read it a few times now that it says the warp is a mirror of the materium. That makes me think like in the warp there would be mirrored versions of what's in the materium, but that doesn't seem to be the case.
Like one-way reflection.
Yeah, because when I think of mirror, that's what I think. Like, so there's a warp shadow Gilliman running around in there somewhere.
Called Milligan.
Called Milligan.
He's got the upside down U, and he's like the Bizarro of Superman. He's just running around.
Yeah,
he's
I
really
do not
stupid.
like that character.
Yeah.
He's awesome.
No statesman skills,
Milligan.
no tactics whatsoever. Just some dude in styrofoam armor running around being a problem for everybody.
Yep. Not a natural blonde either. Got to bleach it.
But it's bleached poorly, so it's like weird streaks and splotchy in different spots. He's got one contact to make his eye blue, but the other one fell out a long time ago.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
No.
Classic Milligan.
No.
Yeah, classic Milligan.
Yeah, it's definitely more of like a one-way mirror, as opposed to like that two-way. Yeah, the warp is reflecting off of us, but it's not reflecting off of the opposite of what I said. We're reflecting off of it, not it's reflecting off of us. Yeah. Other way around?
Yeah.
One of those ways.
No, I think we go into it, but it doesn't. No, because we're not. No, yeah, we feed into it, but it's not.
Yeah, we feed
back.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
Because it's not giving us the direct image back. It's like, I don't know. I quit.
When you can't sleep at night, just lay in bed thinking about that.
No.
There you go.
How do I know all mirrors aren't two-way mirrors, one-way mirrors? What's on the other side of that mirror in my house? I will now wonder.
Yeah.
You ever seen that test where you put your finger up against it, and if your finger, if there's a space between your finger and the reflection, it's a regular mirror. But if your finger is touching the reflection, it's a two-way mirror.
Oh, interesting.
What?
Interesting.
Blew my mind.
You can
Is
test.
that actually official?
I think so, because the way the mirrors are made is there's the reflective surface is here, and then there's usually glass over the reflective surface.
Mm-hmm.
At least this is older mirrors. There are some mirrors that don't work this way, but two-way mirrors, because the light has to stop at the first point, which is the closest thing to you. If you touch it, you'll like see your fingers do this. But if you go look in your bathroom mirror later, there'll be a little gap because there's the glass between you and the reflective surface.
What if, though?
The more you know, I'm actually super happy about that.
What if I go to touch it and I pull it back and the mirror sticks to me and all that chrome starts going across my arm, and then I'm like,
you're about to be killed by a Terminator. Sorry, bro.
No, man. Then I'm Neo.
Yeah,
right? Then I'm good. I wake up.
I was too young to watch The Matrix,
and I've got my head shaved.
I was too young to watch The Matrix when it came out, so I didn't see it until my 20s. So I forget references like that because it was an old movie by the time I finally saw it.
That's rude, first of all.
But I mean, it is, but it's the truth. That's why I miss references like that, because I'm just like, what are you talking about? Oh, yeah, The Matrix. That's a video.
And that was our first double nerding of the night, gentlemen. Thank you very much. We did it. Good job.
No, you brought up Lord of the Rings.
If we hit 10, you have
Okay.
Yeah.
If we hit 10, you have to subscribe to Patreon.
Yeah. It's just that easy. Yeah.
There it is.
It's the rules.
Them's the rules, gentlemen. All right. The birth of Slaanesh. So the birth of Slaanesh provides the clearest example of how a chaos god comes into being. The Eldar civilization, at the height of its decadence and hedonism, fed the warp with an overwhelming tide of excess and corruption. This psychic energy tipping point coalescing into Slaanesh, whose birth caused a catastrophic event known as the Fall of the Eldar. The psychic shockwave annihilated much of their race, creating the Eye of Terror, a massive warp rift, and forever altering the balance of power within the Immaterium. Slaanesh's creation demonstrates that a chaos god is not born of any single individual, but from the collective psychic resonance of countless beings over time. Fantastic. I love that moment. Again, bringing back the regret, the mournful nature of the actions of the Eldar. So good.
Yeah. Now the Eldar are taking it that one step further where, they're going on this whole killing rampage to bring back your need. And if you die, your soul now gets fed to him, at least instead of Slaanesh. But guess that's better.
Probably. I mean, you're serving your own race at that point. You're kind of
at least that's
going. You're serving a purpose that's greater than yourself for your people, I guess.
Yeah.
Is not serving the god of pleasure not serving?
Well, when you say it that way, I'm in.
When you say it that way and look at me that way, we're good, baby.
Sign me up.
Oh man. New chaos gods could, if similar conditions arise, as civilizations evolve and their collective psyche generates new, intense emotional or conceptual patterns, these energies could coalesce into new entities within the warp. For example, the rise of a galactic culture obsessed with a specific idea, be it artificial intelligence, unbridled freedom, or a new form of spiritual transcendence. It could create the psychic conditions necessary for the birth of a new chaos god. The existing chaos gods might even manipulate events to either prevent or encourage such a birth, depending on whether the new entity would threaten their dominion or... Yeah, it's interesting. I feel like with how much they squabble over each other, the chaos gods, that birthing a new one is probably not on their top tier priority list.
Yeah, and to even get them on that same page for any amount of time yet. Not happening.
No.
Nah.
The
when the orcs unite under one banner, that's when it'll happen.
Yeah, that's right.
I was going to say it's going to take the orcs on one end and then the Tyranids coming in on the other, and they're going to need something to help fight both off at the same time.
And what is that the god of? Patience?
Retaliation.
Yeah. Okay.
Or they just wake the Emperor up off the golden throne because he's the fifth chaos god.
Okay, now you're talking heresy. Here we go.
Definitely a lot of heresies. Yeah.
You guys get to do it. I wanted to do some heresy too.
Okay. The potential for the birth of a new chaos god highlights the dynamic and ever-evolving nature of the warp. While the current chaos gods dominate, the warp remains a vast and unpredictable realm, shaped by the emotions and actions of the galaxy's inhabitants. The creation of a new chaos god would be a galaxy-shaking event, altering the balance of power within the Immaterium and the Materium alike. It serves as a reminder that the struggle between order and chaos is never static, and the collective psyche of sentient beings holds the power to shape not only their own destinies, but the very fabric of reality.
Yeah. I just love it, man. Birth of a new god is some galaxy-changing event, like ripping the galaxy in half. That didn't give us a chaos god, but also maybe it gave us many little minor gods that we just haven't even found out about yet. The warp is so vast, who knows what happened in these kind of massive rifts.
Yeah. And then would you know what... we know that the Eldar's hedonism and excess and actions birth Slanesh. They basically know that. But I wonder if another chaos god was born, would you have the intelligence to identify what actions of your civilization, if it was your civilization, caused such a thing? Like if you're like, oh, fuck, it was, God, we kept doing AI.
Too many.
We kept doing AI.
Oh, man. You know?
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah. I would imagine, like, yeah, there would be some people who would point to that for sure. That realization of, oh, it was this.
Yeah.
You know, other people would turn it into that religion for sure, start worshiping the thing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Starts as like a little small chaos god, and then it continuously grows because it tricks people it's helpful, and then oh no, it's bigger than corn. What do we do?
It's like in the early 2000s when every single person's Facebook picture was the duck face, just the little pouty, like kind of thing. And like at some point, man, we're just going to manifest some crazy fucking duck that's going to come out and kill us all. Thanks a lot, guys. Thanks a lot.
Stupid idiots. I warned you. I warned you not to do that.
I think I just remembered, and this might just be me being crazy, but I remember there was some event somewhere where they released a giant rubber duck into a harbor, but they also released a ton of little rubber duckies at the same time, and it just completely polluted and ruined a bunch of things. And I think the duck face ended around the same time.
There it is.
Fuck yeah.
That's the mini chaos god right there.
Quackity.
It's already claimed one world.
Right.
It's claimed one world. It's claimed one harbor. Who's next?
One harbor coming for you.
That movement. So it was the saving grace of that generation.
Yeah, that's what we'll call it.
We do have, though, like a bunch of different ways. Like none of the chaos gods seem to come about in the same manner, really, under any of the same conditions. But it is cool to see just over the course of the many millions of years, just when these gods pop up. I used to be like a very hard and fast, like, now there's only 4 chaos gods, but man, maybe we're due for a 5th one. You know, what kind of events are happening right now that causes such a thing?
But I'm going to ask you personally then, Mark, like, would you, if GW said like, hey guys, it's coming, here it is, and they teased it like the next chaos god, how would you personally feel about that?
Yeah, depending on what it is, like we are going to get to Talva eventually and how they did it. Yeah, you know, like I said, I definitely am interested. Like even with Yanid and how they're going about doing that, there's some fun stuff for sure. I don't really like the concept of never being able to die, but also the god, like instead of Yanid creating demons and stuff, he just gives you back your body, back its soul, and you're kind of like this like semi-demon. It's kind of a cool concept the way he does it. But yeah, no, definitely, man. I think we might be due for a 5th god. There has to be other fun emotions out there to tap into.
What if the 5th chaos god was the Skaven's god, and they brought it into 40K that way, and that's how all the Skaven came in?
See, I like that. I like that.
Well, I say something cool, Court finally agrees, and Mark's like, get out of my podcast. We're not having that here.
Yeah. Now that one was the heresy for sure.
He crossed the streams, and I like that. That's good.
Ghostbusters reference. So we got Terminator. Let's see. Hang on. Terminator, Matrix, Lord of the Rings, Ghostbusters. Does Age of Sigmar count? Are we cheating?
Nah.
No, it's too adjacent.
So we've got 4 so far.
All right.
We'll keep
quad
nerding.
Going. Good job. Speaking of quad 4, what do we got, Logan?
The 4th sphere expansion. Yay!
Wow, we made it. Yeah, so all of that just to learn a little bit about how the warp operates. So when we read what happens in the 4th sphere, we'll be like, how did any of this fucking happen?
And this is all new information to me, so I'm so excited to see what's happening.
Learn us. Here we go.
All right. The 4th sphere expansion. In the wake of the Second Agrellan campaign, the Tau Empire found itself cornered in a precarious and uncertain future. Their grand designs of expansion through Mogolath Bay were thwarted, leaving a lifeless void to the galactic east, a grim legacy of high fleet Gorgon. To the west, the ancient and implacable? Implacable? I've never heard that word. An implacable Necron. Why do I get all the hard words today? Necron Sautek dynasty loomed in an unassailable barrier of cold logic and unyielding power. Amid this suffocating impasse, the galaxy itself seemed to conspire against them. The formation of the Great Rift unleashed chaotic storms that tore through the heavens, annihilating millions and shaking the Tao's resolve.
Take that, Tao.
It is so funny how such a small thing is such a big ordeal to the Tao. They're like just trying to get out of this one little area of space, and they're having all these ordeals.
Maybe they should stay in their lane. Maybe they should know their place.
Maybe.
That was so Imperium of you.
Oh, I'm sorry. I know I'm being right all the time right now, but it's true. All right. It was within this bleak moment of despair that the ethereal council, steadfast in its vision of the greater good, unveiled a daring gambit. Years of relentless study of imperial faster than light technology culminated in the creation of the AL-38 slipstream module, a device of immense promise yet fraught with peril. With this breakthrough, the Tau sought to transcend the limitations of their own technology, launching a bold new sphere expansion. Commander Surestrike was chosen to lead this unprecedented endeavor, and a vast fleet assembled at Numenor Point to test the boundaries of what the Tau dared to dream.
What a crazy moment this would be. Like, just imagine trying to flick on your first like warp drive and how pivotal that would mean for your race and for just being able to move, man. That's been the Tau's biggest enemy this whole time, is they can't get anywhere.
I was thinking it would be super cool because it says it's a module, so I assume you could put it on a battle suit, but you put it in as like an enhancement in the actual tabletop game. But you have to roll a test to see if it's going to blow up or not when you teleport your model across the table. I think that would be super fun.
Yeah, cool. That almost be kind of a cool like little module, that gets attached on and becomes like, so Tau don't get psychers, they get these like psycher modular boxes that kind of tap into it technologically, and
Oh, and that'd be super cool because then you could do more fun things with them. Like they can have a cannon that channels warp energy, or they could have something that gives them a shield other than their other shields, like a bigger shield or an invul set. That would do so many cool things we could do with this. I hope they do it in the future, but fun stuff.
Yeah.
All right.
What I hear Commander... is that you're really excited about a Xenos race, Tau.
Come on.
I don't know.
They're
fun.
Yeah.
I don't know what you're talking about. No. Tau are fun. I love their battle suits. Like it's just so they were almost my first army actually. So nice. Maybe if someone had
Tau. Yeah, I played Tau in 4th, I think.
Tau have been fun and almost they've been a top tier army until like just recently is when they finally fell from grace, but they were horrifically hard to deal with in past editions.
Yeah. It's all about how much fun you have with them. It's not about the meta, kids.
Remember the Garrett and I, when we played his Tau, I creamed him, but we started having fun with it. And I was like, charge my Invictor Warsuit with your Fire Warriors. Come on, it'll be funny. And he made the charge and actually did damage to it. It was so good.
Nice.
Now remember, it's not how big the slug is. It's how long the rail rifle is.
Exactly. That's what determines velocity. That's how it works. All right. Commander Surestrike. A devoted disciple of Commander Shadowsun, Surestrike's early career was marked by an unwavering loyalty and the drive to safeguard the Tau Empire from any threat to its unity. His first and notable command saw him leading a decisive action against the survivors of Magulath Bay. Those who sought to defect to the rebellious Farsight enclaves, with cold precision, he crushed this insurrection, solidifying his reputation as a steadfast protector of the greater good. His success did not go unnoticed by his mentor, Commander Shadowsun, who saw in Surestrike not only a capable leader, but a visionary, someone worthy of commanding the fourth sphere expansion. Yet, despite his great potential and the trust placed in him, Surestrike's destiny took a darker turn. I hope I'm going to read about some Chaos Tau in the next couple of sentences, because this is leading me to want some Chaos Tau, which would be really cool to look at.
We'll fucking get there. Yeah, this is kind of the first little incident involving Surestrike where he's done something rather not very Tau-like, and that's wiped out a bunch of his own rebellious Tau brethren from the far side enclaves.
They deserved it.
Gosh, heard it here first. Propaganda machine at 9.
Yeah, right when you were like, okay, we're getting cool.
No.
Logan's back. Nope.
What are you talking about? I'm being consistent. All Xenos deserve it. Suffer not the alien to live, court.
Gosh.
I don't see any for audio listeners. He has no Xeno stuff behind him, but there's a lot of Imperium stuff behind him.
What are you talking?
There's behind them, and that's
there's your Space Marine.
Part.
There's that 3rd edition codex you hold up all the time.
Yeah,
I don't see you holding up no Drukhari codex.
It's in the other room.
In the back.
Allegedly. Allegedly.
Oh.
All right, back to Surestrike. But his hubris met reality in catastrophic fashion. The deployment of slipstream technology on such an immense scale ruptured the fragile fabric of real space. An unholy chain reaction ensued, carving a gaping wound into the cosmos itself. The rift, vast and voracious, consumed the fleet in an instant, erasing thousands of lives and broadcasting its horror across the entire empire. As the Tau reeled from this disaster, the Ethereals moved swiftly to shroud the event in secrecy, their visions for unity and progress momentarily eclipsed by the enormity of their failure. And guess what I'm about to say, Court? They deserved it.
I know.
How dare you mess with technology? Maybe that cool. Battlesuit warp nodule isn't a good idea. And all of a sudden, we saved a lot of lives by not investing in it.
Maybe, but now I want it to be like if you teleport and if you fail the roll, you still can teleport, but your suit blows up and takes things out around it.
A couple demons pop out.
Yeah, I'll do. Yes, let's get suit back in the game. Change my mind.
I just want to see the departure of this technology and like the maiden voyage, and the Ethereals are just like, yes, we've finally done it.
We've reached the zenith of our empire.
Just like, oh shit. Okay, delete that post that we had going out saying it was a great success. Fuck this, we're covering it up.
But the whole empire was watching, so it's like the worst cover-up of all time as they rip the galaxy in half a little bit.
It's like that one meme.
They're gaslighting everybody. No,
they're gaslighting everyone.
I don't know what you're talking about.
That meme. It's like, guys, I'm gonna go fight this guy. I'll post the footage later. Never mind, I'm not posting that. I got my ass beat. All right. The fate of the fourth sphere. The fourth sphere was not wholly lost. Cast adrift in nightmarish and alien dimension, the fleet faced annihilation from incomprehensible entities that preyed upon them in the dark. 3/4 of their number perished in those chaotic depths, but a glimmer of salvation came from an enigmatic, many-armed presence within the warp. This entity, suspected to be a strange and dark reflection of the greater good, shielded the survivors and guided them back to real space, emerging at last in the Kalnath expanse, deep in the Imperium of man's domain. The remnants of the fourth sphere reestablished tenuous contact with their empire through communication drones. So there is a mirror thing going. I guess the mirror isn't like a 1-for-1 mirror, but the mirror is a mirror of the emotions, and it gets the warp mirrors emotions and gives them a physical form. I think is a better way to look at it from our confusion earlier.
Yeah. So this is crazy. They get lost in the warp. A bunch of them die just due to demonic invasions and stuff. You know, they have no Geller fields protecting them, so they're getting overrun by demons. And then all of a sudden, a glimmer of salvation happens, and a many-armed warp presence emerges. And this is Tauva, the goddess of the greater good. So we'll pause our story for a second here, and we'll learn about her, and then we'll pick up the Force Sphere again. The goddess Tauva, a newly manifested warp entity, is an enigmatic and powerful figure, born from the very heart of the Tau Empire's ideals. She is the embodiment of the greater good, a divine reflection shaped by the collective belief of the Empire and its psychically attuned allies. The goddess is a personification of the Tau's guiding principles, formed from the hopes and aspirations of those who come to revere the greater good. A figure forged in the mind of the Kroot, Nikisar, Karpaktin, and all who follow the Tau's vision. Her form is a strange fusion resembling both Tau and humans they've encountered, yet she is distinct, her body adorned with multiple arms, each one unique. Some bear the graceful hands of Tau, others are shaped with those of humans, Kroot, Nikisar, Karpaktin. I've never heard of that one before, I don't think. I'll have to look that one up. And each hand resembles a grasping and diverse cultures. Blades, cornucopias, quills, shells, and amorphia, a buckler shield, or patches of flickering light. These hands speak of unity and diversity, a tapestry of beliefs woven into the fabric of the goddess, yet her face remains a chilling blank, a pale expanse of featureless flesh, offering no glimpse into the essence of the entity who stands before them. Though her appearance is strange and unsettling, Tauva communicates with those who encounter her, speaking not with words but through psychic impressions, whispers of guidance and vision, direct to the hearts and minds of those who she chooses to reveal herself to. Her presence is both awe-inspiring and ominous, an ever-present reminder of the Tau's ideals, now given form in a way no one could have predicted. So we have the birth of Tauva. How could this have happened, you say? What was the event that caused this? Was it really just this messed up technology? They turned this on and it created a Tau god, essentially, the first kind of form of this happening. You know, we've had humans create it, we've had Eldar create gods, but like Tau have done it now through like a technological means, perhaps.
Well, yeah, I think that's a really cool way to kind of shape it and put it, is like the Tau were so known for their technological advancement at a rapid pace. Like they came into being, and it was like cool gatherers, hunters, and like they had their spears and stuff, very primitive, if you will, like civilization and race of Xenos. Imperium comes back thousands of years later, and they're like, oh shit, these guys have evolved quick. Okay, so if you're to kind of pigeonhole certain species into like one kind of respective like characteristic, it seems like Tau is the advancement of technology at a rapid pace, and they hit a wall. That wall was like, we cannot do faster than light travel. We cannot be a galactic player until this happens. And I'm sorry, guys, like Tau folks, like your army's cool. I played Tau in 4th when they came out. I bought it.
I was naive once too.
Hell yeah. Yeah. Right. But they just don't have it to be a galactic player. They then get to that point.
Yeah.
And that's when things change. So I love that their characterization of rapid expansion, rapid technological advancement, and then stopping at a point where it's building up. It's like bottlenecking. And then it happens because that is such a significant thing to that entirety of the race. Something changes.
Yeah.
Like huge.
Yeah. And like, and not that they were trying to create a god when they did this, but you know, that's what happened. Nonetheless, sometimes when you flick those machines on, you don't know what they're going to get up to. Yeah. And yeah, like you kind of mentioned, for 2,000 years, they've had a very driving force behind them. This one ideology that every one of them kind of holds true to. And it's unity and hope, I would imagine, would kind of be how you could sum it up. Unity for, those who want to join the greater good, and then hope that we can actually kind of solve everything. So for thousands of years, 2,000 years, they've been going from planet to planet, spreading their ideology, spreading that belief. Those two are pretty powerful emotions. And then, like you said, you have that pivotal moment. Boom! It all happens. It all coalesces. They're battling demons in the warp, and they cry out to the god that is now ready to be born, and it saves them.
It's wild. I love it. Origins. No one truly knows when Tao Va first appeared, but her earliest known manifestation came to a young shadow sun. Still a student under the revered Pure Tide, Shadow Sun had been given a seemingly simple task: to retrieve a stone. Pure Tide had placed deep within the winding labyrinth beneath Dal Eoth's Mount Kanji. We're gonna go with that.
Yeah, that place is pretty cool. It's like just picture Japan. You got your lone monk on a mountain who's just an ancient samurai. You got Pure Tide there just teaching students lessons, having them do all types of new techniques on the mountain. You have to go retrieve the fruit on that end of the mountain. They have to climb over there to fulfill their warrior code. It's a very cool part of Tao mythos, and it actually happened too. So it's not really mythos, but
yeah, it's cool. Their way of life is pretty fascinating, to be honest. I like their kind of culture and their tiered system or their caste kind of society. She thought this was her trial, a test of her strength and resolve, but Pure Tide's plan was far more complicated. As Shadow Sun ventured deeper into the labyrinth, a surge of water poured through the tunnels, flooding the passageways before she could reach her prize. Pure Tide had orchestrated this challenge to test her ability to escape the labyrinth, yet the overwhelming force of nature proved too much. Days passed, and Shadow Sun, battered and exhausted, found herself struggling to stay conscious. The waters were rising, and there was no air to be found. In that moment, when all seemed lost, Tao Va materialized before her as a shimmering, translucent apparition. Shadow Sun, overwhelmed by both the beauty and mystery of the figure, could only mentally ask in disbelief, "What are you?" The goddess answered, her voice echoing softly through Shadow Sun's mind. "I am the communal." Wow. Oh.
Commonality.
Thank you. Well, I've never seen it spelled that way.
There's commonality, or I think it's supposed to be communality.
Like a commune.
Yeah.
Yeah, there it is. Okay. I am the communality of species. I am destiny.
Cool. We have this kind of very typical kind of story of a warrior who gets injured during training and gets that call to the future, that call for something more, but doesn't fully understand the mystery of it all, especially as like a Tao that has no idea of the warp and all that kind of stuff. But I love just how they've tapped into that just base human or hero kind of archetype storyline.
Very Empire Strikes Back, Luke freezing on Hoth. Ben, just like,
exactly.
Yeah, it's very cool.
I think that's 6 for the counter.
There we go. We got it. We're getting them.
The other thing about this is shows like Pure Tide is pretty old. Like this happened a while ago. So this god's been kind of in the making for a while, a couple hundred years, kind of simmering under the surface.
I think that's the case with most of these too, is that nothing so extraordinary could happen so quickly. I think there's that buildup of it too.
Yeah.
Over the years and years. Yeah. Yeah. Shadow Sun, gripped by doubt, rejected this revelation. She refused to believe in such a being, dismissing Tao Va as nothing more than a mere ghost. But Tao Va, with a calm and sorrowful voice, responded, "Set against the cosmos, I am nothing. It is true. Though even a seed cast to the wind can flourish. If you will let me, child of hope." With those words, the raging waters around Shadow Sun began to subside, and she could see once again. Her vision cleared, and in the stillness that followed, Shadow Sun asked what she could do to repay this mysterious being. Tao Va's reply was simple yet profound. "I simply wish to exist, child." As Shadow Sun's head broke through the surface of the water, Tao Va faded from sight, leaving no trace behind. The young commander, still dazed from the ordeal, escaped the labyrinth, but the memory of the encounter lingered like a shadow in her mind. Though she had been saved, she couldn't bring herself to accept what happened. The image of the goddess, so pure and strange, continued to haunt her thoughts. Was it a ghost, a vision, or something more? The doubt remained, but one thing was certain. The moment the presence of Tao Va had touched her soul in a way she could neither deny or fully understand. I nearly had the "I just need a moment, I'm verklempt" time there. Like it got me it got me up a little bit on the emotions, guys. It was good.
Oh man.
I have a hot take.
Oh God.
I think she's going to be like a god of deception or something. She's playing very nice with the Tau because they're young, naive, and easy to manipulate, but she's going to corrupt them horrifically later in the lore.
So it's Zinch?
This is just Chinch the whole time, yeah.
Oh, that could be, maybe. No, I guess he is kind of deceptive, but just I'm reading all of this and it feels so like, oh, I just want to exist. I just want to help people. Nothing that comes from
That's the best thing about the Tau. It's a magical place, man. We can all get along and have a great time over there. Yeah, just accept it. This is great. Come join the Empire. This can be your god too.
No.
Yeah, it's so interesting. Like Shadow hits her head, gets this crazy vision. The god says something. "I simply wish to exist." Like, what do we know about Korn's motivations? You know, it's so easy to just be like blood for the blood god. Like, but this one just wants to exist, be in harmony, I guess. Or,
and if it's a reflection, okay, tinfoil hat, gentlemen. Here we go. Boop, boop, boop.
Whoop.
If it's a reflection of the Tau themselves and the idea of greater good and whatnot, the Tau is not a galactic player at that time. They're a small speck, right? But they're moving, they're changing, they're growing, they're evolving, they're doing everything, and they themselves, see themselves as something that needs to matter. The greater good, though, is being overshadowed by the Imperium, chaos, other Xenos, everything. They are trying to spread this seed of hope, and yet it's so hard for it to exist in a grim, dark world, in a grim, dark galaxy. So Tao Va's desire is simply to exist, just to be, much like the Tau. They want to exist. They want to spread this idea that is being squashed by just everything around them, and to be part of the Galactic Players Association, the GPA, if you will, of 40K. Just making that up. But excuse me. I think that mirrors the Tau's way so wonderfully. And especially, again, if you look into the influences of Japanese culture and the way that it works with, kind of reflecting on the Tau, is to simply exist. Not to be anything greater, not to be anything less, but just to be and to exist within everything else in harmony. So suck it, Logan. What do you think of that?
Oh, you're not going to like what I'm about to say.
Okay.
Because I have a response.
Okay.
Get your tinfoil hat for your tinfoil hat.
Hang on. Okay. I'm ready.
I appreciate you.
Fingers
so the warp, it has a distorted version in it of whatever is coming from here. So anger gets distorted, becomes Korn, greed and lust becomes Slanesh, etc., etc., etc. The Tau are so bad that their twisted mirror image is actually a good deity. The greater good that they're preaching is a lie. They're monstrous enslaving society, just like any other nation. But because they lie so much and say we're for the greater good, that has
who hurt you as a child? Did one bad Tau hurt you when you were younger? And
all
now
the
you
bad
hate them
Tau
all?
hurt me. I mean, I think I this is what I see here. I have to defend that the Tau are bad, and this is my justification for it.
I do like that. I do like that theory. I think it's fun. And Mark, you and the guys in way earlier episodes touched upon the ethereals kind of using like a pheromone thing to I know, okay, put your hands down, Logan. I know, to control the minds of their subjects, and I like that idea as well.
Yeah, pheromone or possibly some type of psychic organ, like maybe alongside the ethereals, like 2,000 years ago, when the first kind of pop of Tau Va was the ethereals coming together, like that first initial, like, hey, we should work together. Something psychic broke not only in them, but also in the Immaterium and created this god. And then that could now be playing into how they are kind of able to mind control everyone. They got this little switch of psychic in them now.
Just going back though, like Logan, so you're saying what I'm hearing you say at its core is that humanity, man, is inherently good and better than everything else because we have birthed Korn, Nurgle, and Tzeentch, and those are all bad things. So then we must be inherently good, and the Eldar are inherently bad because they birthed Slaanesh, and the Tau, again another Xenos, has birthed Tau Va, so they must be inherently bad as well. Is this what
he prescribes to the
couple
wacky
problems?
mirror.
Yeah, a couple problems with your theory. One, Slaanesh is not a good god, so that does not work. Slaanesh is also bad.
Oh yeah.
How dare I? First of all, but no. So what the other gods are the twisted, more corrupt versions of raw emotions humans and Eldar feel. So lust, desire, greed. Nurgle's technically got rebirth in it and wanting to rejuvenate. So it's just a twisted corruption of those things. So they're still bad for us, but they get twisted by the warp to a further extent. What I'm saying with the Tau is their propaganda machine is so strong that the latent psychers that might be in the Tau genuinely believe it. And that gave birth to an actual good chaos god. Feel me?
That's too many tinfoil hats, I think.
I think it's
What's
fun.
bad is good. And next, you're going to be talking about the Night Lord's Primarch and how he's actually a good guy because he psychically foresaw it all.
I'm being accused by chat of hating fun, which is just wrong. You guys you're not as conspiratorial as I am.
Love it.
Okay, if I'm right in like 5 years and this comes out in official lore, I'm gonna like point to this episode and be like, "Ha, called it."
Drop us down.
Yeah, first time I ever heard about this god, and I called the entire plot line off jump, just like, here's where it goes. Oh, Fuzz agrees with me now. Let's go! Thank you, Fuzz.
You won somebody over. I do not think Logan's entirely wrong, honestly.
No, he's just mostly wrong.
Just mostly. Just fundamentally.
Again with the fake news on this podcast. There's just so much misinformation about me right now.
Oh my gosh.
So the second time we get to see Tau Va before the manifestation, well, I guess this is now the manifestation of being trapped in the warp. So we jump back to the force sphere of expansion.
Yeah. So back in current time, the next time Tau Va revealed her presence was when the fourth sphere expansion fleet of the Tau Empire found itself trapped within the warp. The fleet, battered and broken, had been stranded there for what seemed like an eternity, enduring relentless attacks from demons. In this time of dire need, Tau Va's power surged forth, casting the fleet into the safety of the Nemyar Atoll, a place of tranquility where the Startide Nexus was born. This miraculous intervention left a mark upon the fleet and its allies. The auxiliaries, witnessing this divine act, began openly worshiping the goddess. However, this sparked a deep revolution among the Tau, who saw the growing devotion to Tauva as dangerous and corrupting influence, a violation of the sacred greater good. What did I say? They blamed the auxiliaries for their fleet suffering, believing that their worship of the goddess was the very thing that caused the demon's attack. I wonder who said something like that earlier.
Yeah, and this is kind of where it gets interesting. Like the Tau don't even start off liking this god necessarily. Shadow Sun's first encounter is like, I don't trust that thing. And now they are in the warp, and humans and other auxiliaries, Kroot might be praying to they'll peg Kroot hawk gods and stuff. And you got some Gouge frog people over in the corner ribbiting their praises as well. They're all kind of speaking into however they can fight the warp. Demons are flooding, and then eventually they're saved from their prayers, with their prayers. And the Tau are looking on in disbelief, like, what is happening? And something grows in them, more mistrust. They just really don't understand the warp at all.
Yeah. And it's cool that I guess the less advanced species of the Tau were 100% on board with like, oh yeah, this is a god. This just saved our lives. Let's worship it. And the higher intellect of the Tau, they were like, no, this is a monster. We must kill the worshippers to get it to go away.
Yeah. Yeah, and this is an interesting thing too, like, because this god is definitely, we're talking about the goddess of unity essentially, but it is a bunch of different Xenos coming together and worshiping in whatever way they can, different souls and their different power levels all kind of coming together and mingling. You talked about what's its desire and how that one line is probably a pretty good spot. It just wants to exist. But yeah, just what other emotions are we going to see bleed into this god of unity through each one of those distinct Xenos?
Yeah, and now I'm wondering, like, if the orc saw her and started to believe in her, is she going to develop orc traits? Because she has a human arm, and she has the court does not like what I'm throwing out here with this new fun and exciting god. For audio listeners, his head is in his hands, and he's just crying.
You're hurting him
right now.
I'm having psychic backlash right now. Oh,
that's a callback. Oh, this is great.
Yeah, so he doesn't like that idea.
No, he doesn't. It's okay. He can be wrong.
Yeah. Where's the mute Logan button?
Too late. And so the Tau, driven by fear and anger, much like Court right now, turned on their once allied species, much like me, beginning a brutal campaign of extermination.
That's nice.
Oh, they believed that by destroying the auxiliaries, they could rid themselves of the goddess once and for all. The horrors of this campaign only ceased when Commander Shadowsun, now leading the Fifth Sphere expansion, arrived within the Namyar Atoll. Under her command, the Fourth was united with the Fifth, and the worship of Tauva, though still contentious among the Tau, began to spread across the atoll's world. Temples dedicated to the goddess sprouted from the planets, their stone walls whispering her name to all those who would listen. While the Tau did not worship her, some found themselves haunted by dreams of the goddess. Yet for Shadowsun, the memory of her own encounter with Tauva had long since faded. How do you forget that? How do you forget you saw a literal ghost deity help you not die, and you're just like, oh, hey, look at this thing.
All things fade with time.
Or the mind control of the Imperial.
So you're saying the greater good is not the greater good? Oh, no.
So we have this now whole nother part of the Tau Empire, essentially, where, they've opened up this crazy wormhole that they can jump through the Nimial Atoll, and now they can jump back and forth across the galaxy. So we have the two spheres of expansion. The fourth they created, got lost in it, finally made it to the other side with the help of the chaos god, Tauva. And hundreds of years later, I don't know how long of a time between the fourth and the fifth, but it was pretty quick. I don't even think hundreds of years. The fifth comes in across the wormhole. They look on the other end and find that the Tau are alive and well. And they find that there's not a lot of Xenos working with these Tau anymore. And everyone's kind of hush-lipped with it. Like, yeah, I don't know. We had a bunch of Xenos. They must have died in the battle. No, haven't been doing any mass genocides over here on this side of the atoll.
I don't know. Your guess is as good as mine.
What do you mean we left with auxiliaries? Where? I
don't know about
I don't see them on the ship. What are those bodies? What bodies? I don't see no bodies.
It's so crazy that this is how the god of unity is born, with the Tau like dragging their feet against it.
I think
the minor Xenos that birthed it.
I think that's fitting though. Like, not just for my tinfoil hat conspiracy, the greater good is a lie, but like the greater good, they want to unify the galaxy, and the god of unity shows up and they're just like, no, no. That's like, that's so 40K, but it's such an interesting juxtaposition that the literal god for them, and they reject it immediately.
As a story arc, though, like as a story standpoint, you can't have that. It just puts them as the exact good guys. Like, you have a god that says, we're going to do this, you know, the hope and the unity and all that. And they're like, great, we've been waiting for you. Like, that instantly puts them as like, well, good, then you're the right ones in this galaxy. Like, that's what we want.
Yeah, I
but
think
we all know the ends never justify the means. You know,
right.
It starts off nice until
you got those camps. That's why it's like the two trains of thought that I've had in the last half hour I've been talking about this god is it's either going to become a corrupted version of Unity, or it is a true version of Unity, and Tau are more evil than people like to admit that they are. And that's how this happened. Those are the two paths I see for this character so far.
Yeah. Fuzz says a good point that we're reinforced. I don't think the Tau actually birthed Tau-Va. It was all the psychic auxiliary. And yeah, that's 100% true. You know, we might not have mentioned in this episode that Tau have a very tiny Paquito soul. Everyone seems to know that in 40K, so we glanced over it. But very, very small soul energy. So yeah, this isn't a Tau god necessarily at all. It's the Tau have taught all these other Xenos unity, and now they're praising and worshiping. And like I said, there's a Kroot doing his Kroot Hawk ritual to the greater good god now, and that manifested a little bit more energy.
Yeah,
it kind of reminds me a little bit of Halo, because they had all the different species that were worshiping the Great Journey, and then the elites found out the Great Journey was a lie, and that caused the Great Schism to happen. And this, while not explicitly said, this is kind of like that. All the minor species believe in this new deity, but the Tau, the elite one of the faction, disagree with it. Yeah. So the fourth sphere at least turns into a schism and kills itself.
Yeah. I think it's like a very normal thing to think. Like, just imagine you're this scientific race, and then you're finally presented in front of a god. Tau-Va is standing in front of you, and all of a sudden you're like, what? Gods weren't real. And you kind of have to crash your whole worldview before you can even accept that this chaos god is potentially even a thing. Yeah, it makes sense why a lot of the Tau like didn't worship her. They're just like, what the heck is that? But I have a feeling like they're coming around. They're coming around to it. They're just in the disbelief stage.
Yeah, they got to go through depression, anger, and then they'll get to acceptance, right?
Yeah, exactly.
The loss of their innocence.
Yeah, there we go.
Well, what was her words before? It says, I'm scrolling up. Simply wished to exist, but she said, yeah. I am destiny. Okay. So I am destiny was what Tau-Va said, echoing through Shadow Sun's mind. Destiny is so often not what you think it would be. So many times, here we go, philosophical. Oh. So many times when you go and you get to that point that you wanted so badly, it looks very different. You know, so many times when you think that you've, I don't want to say made it and whatnot, but like gotten to that point in life where like, this is where I should be, this is what it is. It looks very different, but it still fulfills and checks all those boxes. So to recognize something that you've internally wanted and dreamed of and excuse me, hoped for years and decades and millennia or whatever, and then it happens, it's not going to appear the way you wish. You know, it's going to look differently. And I think that is the schism that's happening with the Tau culture. Is we thought it would be one way, it's not, it's this way. she says, "I am destiny."
Yeah.
So it's like it's going to happen. It just doesn't look the way that you think.
Like
Yeah.
they're mad.
Yeah,
They
yeah.
wanted to achieve it their way through science, but they're going to have to achieve it through divinity and chaos magic.
I like
Yeah.
that, Logan. I like what you said there.
See, you
That's
guys got to let me cook a
good.
little bit. We'll
Yeah,
get there.
that's good.
Yeah. Instead of making like Geller fields and stuff, they just pray to like Talva to fight the demons off in the warp for them.
Interesting.
It's becoming more useful.
I love it. All right. So where are we? All right. So the memory faded. The temples are popping up everywhere. All right. So that continued until the Death Guard, led by Lord Oritus. I like Oritus better. Oritus Glurstock. That is a cool name.
That's his Christian name too.
That's his Christian name.
Yeah. He didn't change that after Nurgle.
He didn't change
His
that
mother
all of
calls
that.
him Ori, though.
All right, I'm going to call him Ori now because you said that.
Ori
That
or
isn't-
Tosk.
That was until Lord OG invaded the atoll on the planet Pikun. While fighting off the forces of chaos, Shadow Sun stumbled upon one of Talva's temple. The sight of the statue of the goddess was enough to trigger a sudden and violent flashback to her near-drowning experience beneath Dalith's Mount Kanji. Filled with rage and confusion, Shadow Sun destroyed the statue and ordered the Earth Cast to tear down every temple dedicated to Talva. But the Death Guard's forces...
anger right there.
Yeah, there's anger. So now she's feeding corn. Good job.
Yeah, but one more step along acceptance.
Yeah, true. You're right. Anger. I forgot we made that earlier, but yeah, we're on the way. But as the Death Guard's forces drew nearer to the Startide Nexus, the Shadow Sun found herself desperate. She realized that only by turning to the very auxiliary she had once rejected could she hope to save the atoll. In a moment of reluctant faith, Shadow Sun asked the auxiliaries to pray to Talva to call upon the goddess's power to turn the tide of battle. She led a boarding action against OG's flagship, the Nephilim, determined to stop it before it could breach the Nexus. As they board the warship, auxiliaries began chanting, their voices rising in unison. Talva, keep us. Talva, hear our prayers. Talva, watch over us. Talva, hear our prayers. Talva, keep us. Their words had a powerful effect, weakening the Death Guard's forces. Yet, despite their prayers, Shadow Sun's assault ultimately failed. The Tau and their auxiliaries were forced to retreat, but their prayers were not in vain. Unseen forces were at work, and the Death Guard's fate was sealed. The sorcerer Diminus Thurgaline, once a loyal follower of OG, began to receive visions from the goddess. He foresaw that entering the Startide Nexus would trap the Death Guard within the warp forever. Despite his warnings, OG pressed on, leading a split within his fleet. Most of his ships, under Thurgline's guidance, abandoned the Nexus. Only the Nephilim and 2 other warships ventured deeper, seeking to breach the enigmatic realm. Logan's saying that is going to be my ringtone.
Yeah.
Glad I could be there for you, Grimaldus.
Yeah. Words of affirmation right there, for sure.
Yeah. The chat has been so divided over my takes tonight. It's been great to watch. And if you join the Imperial Tide, you can see how wrong I am live on screen. But Thurgline was right. Glurtok's fleet became ensnared in the warp, unable to escape. After what felt like an eternity, the towering figure of Talva appeared before the Nephilim. A stunned Gerstok on the verge of madness demanded to know what she was. Talva's voice was serene, yet her words carried the weight of ages. I am the goddess Talva. Glurstock, enraged, denied her power, shouting that the Tau were godless, but Talva's voice remained calm. But their allies are not. Ooh.
What a line.
Yeah, that's a shut up, sit down, boy. With a swift and overwhelming gesture, the goddess seized the Nephilim. That is a big goddess, so she can pick up a ship, holding it fast in the warp. The Chaos Lord, consumed by madness, could not comprehend what was happening. His mind unraveled in the face of such divine power. Later, as Shadow Sun recovered from the invasion, she remembered her first encounter with Tauva beneath the mountain of Dailath, when the goddess had saved her from death. The news of the Death Guard's defeat reached her, and she learned that the warships had entered the Startide Nexus and were now trapped in the warp. With this knowledge, Shadow Sun immediately ordered the cessation of the destruction of Tauva's temples. The goddess had not only saved her once more, but her influence was growing even among the most stubborn and fearful of the Tau. And perhaps Shadow Sun began to understand that the goddess' presence was not a curse, but a force of hope.
Oh man, I just love that line, but their allies are not. And it's just like, okay, so the Tau have this god now that is supposed to be their god. It's in the name, but they have no say over what this god does ultimately. Yeah, they can try to manipulate all their auxiliaries into believing things, but they're going to believe what they're going to believe and create apparently gods in your name and image for you that might not represent you fully anyways.
The funny thing, too, with the creation of this god that is seemingly the only malevolent thing in this entire galaxy is it kind of actually does make the Tau the good guys. Because they have the only kind, good, and caring god in the universe. Now, she's serving their purpose right now.
I think, though, when we see how this god operates, like, kind and caring, in my mind, does not warrant more bloodshed. Where this god definitely does. Like I said, the ends, they don't ever justify the means. And when you take this kind of ideology too far and, I know what's best for everybody in the galaxy, it's going to go sideways and that's going to lead to evil. Even more horrendous evil.
So maybe, fun take. Third option for what they could do with this character is the Tau start to keep praying to her and kind of weaponizing her, and she becomes a more twisted version and turns into what the greater good is, and it's just the Tau's greedy expansion of the galaxy.
Well, what's kind of crazy is they can't do that, though. They can pray and worship all day long, but their soul is not enough to do it in the first place. Like, they would never be able to compete with the Xenos.
Well, they could just get the Xenos to do it for them.
Well, yeah, like, you could always manipulate and use more propaganda and stuff, but ultimately it's so out of their control. This foreign thing that they have no understanding of, they don't seem to want to know about it. We're happy to just leave it alone. Now that has a god in their image, and they're like, oh god, we have no control. It just is. Yeah.
This is exciting.
Yeah, it's a fun little idea. It's definitely fun how they kind of combined all these different races together to do this. So on the other side of the fourth and fifth sphere expansion, the portal that had torn through reality became known as the Startide Nexus, a gateway both wondrous and ominous. This wormhole would later serve as the foundation for the fifth sphere of expansion, but the scars of the fourth sphere ordeal were not so easily healed. Their point of reemergence, fortified into the Nemiar Atoll, became a bastion born of trauma and desperation. Dark rumors began to swirl regarding the fate of the fourth sphere's auxiliaries. Alien allies once embraced under the banner of the greater good, whispers spoke of expulsions, mass executions, and betrayals as the Tau survivors, hardened by their ordeals, sought scapegoats for the horrors they endured. These chilling accounts suggested that auxiliary psychic perceptions may have been inadvertently birthed the warped god entity that saved them, a paradox that transformed gratitude into hatred. The Tau of the fourth sphere, who were rediscovered by the Empire, were deeply altered. They carried with them the cold brutality and xenophobia that stood stark in contrast to the ideas of unity and cooperation exposed by the greater good. Tales of their actions, massacres of human prisoners, calculated sacrifices of Xenos auxiliary forces, and infamous events like the massacre of the Dolan Lakes and the 8 Days of Infamy cast a shadow over their legacy. Even the intervention of Commander Shadowsun and the Ethereal Council, who had imposed the ritual punishment of Makla upon the commanders, could not entirely cleanse the stain. This is crazy. The Tau like go gangster. They go very chaotic. They go hard and just purge all the Xenos from their rank. Sometimes they're doing it in like ritualistic ways and stuff, which leads me to believe that maybe now the gods, the Chaos gods, have taken an interest in the Tau a little bit. Maybe Korn was pushing them to do this. It's, sure, it's a minor soul, but it's better than no soul. $1 to me on Patreon is better than no dollars to me on Patreon.
It's
Maybe
also,
they're taking that same approach.
It's also fun to see the Tau Empire acting like the Imperium, where they're just purging things that they don't agree with.
Don't understand. They
don't like it, don't understand, so they're purging it. So it's like,
according to you, they've been doing that the whole time.
That just
allegedly,
that just goes even to Tau Va and how Tau Va is going to deal with any encounters, of disagreements. It gets dark quickly,
I think
it's the grim dark future. Of course, it gets dark.
Yeah. Logan, you make a good point and say like how it mimics almost the Imperium, and with the Tau being such a young race, we'll say in the grand scheme of things, to see this as like one of their first real kind of pivotal moments as a race and as a culture, where it's like this god interrupts their way of life. This god interrupts their society, I'm going to say stability somewhat, and challenges everything that they've thought about. I mean, and it's either like it is, yes, for the greater good, and that's what we're going with, or it is not. And it's very interesting to see kind of how this disrupts their way of life and tears them apart a little bit,
Yeah, some of them just don't accept it. Others are building temples and they're slowly learning to kind of accept it. Others find that they're joining their neighbor Gruvessa in prayer at night before dinner. Their ration buddy. They're joining him a little across the, I don't know how you symbolize the many arms, but there's definitely a way.
I don't know. I'm just doing some weird hand gesture.
He did like butterfly with the Spock live long and prosper
thing
at the same time. That was
it's
really
almost
weird.
the Aquila. It's almost the Aquila, right? But
it's like if Napoleon Dynamite was a Star Trek fan. No, he's doing Spock.
What's cool too is, and I love conflict within cultures. I love conflict within societies and within in their own race here now, because the classic one we know of with Tau is Farsight enclaves, or the classic Tau ethereal caste, and going that way. And so they're still both kind of serving the greater good in their own way, and it's just a rebellious nature versus kind of the controlled nature. But now you have something that is really outside of them, because Farsight is obviously still Tau, but going in different directions. And now you have this bomb that's dropped into this society, race, and culture, where it's like, what the fuck? This is completely new. So I like that there's almost a new way to collect, play, and experience this army, is that you could really, we haven't really talked much tabletop on this episode, but like you could state definitively with your Tau army, this is a Tau force that worships Tau Va, or the opposite. This is a Tau
They
force
were part of the fourth sphere.
Right. Yeah. Or this is the opposite. No, we do not worship Tau Va whatsoever. Yeah. And we
I notice there's not a lot of Xenos allies in your army there. Why is that? You don't like them, or you don't like them?
Yeah.
Will the Tau that don't believe in them start chanting death to the false greater good?
Ooh, yeah. Your corpse god, the greater good.
Yeah.
Your false good.
Your false good. The trauma culminated in rebellion with auxiliaries within the fourth sphere. Contingents rose up, most notably in the Bloody Crute uprisings on Kaysan. In response, the Ethereals decreed the removal of all non-Tau auxiliary forces from the fourth sphere forces, an act of grim pragmaticism that underscores the unbridgeable rift between ideologies and reality. The fourth sphere endures, but its legacy remains one of ominous transformation, a stark reminder that even the brightest visions of progress can be shadowed by the abyss. Yeah, this was the classic. They were hoping for the best, and then all things went wrong. Everything went wrong. Things went so wrong that they birthed the chaos god.
That's really funny. I like that.
But it's like, the beginning of the movie, the intro's so nice and warm. There's the sun shining. There's Tau children in the fields with their balloons watching the great inauguration of the Force Sphere. And yeah, by the end of it, it's just a hellscape.
I wonder, because you said it because she was clearly in the warp floating around after her meeting with Shadow Sun. I wonder if it was all the auxiliaries on the ship that were panicking and asking for something to save them that made her appear before the fourth sphere. Because I'm sure the tower is trying to figure out how to navigate it, but all the auxiliaries freaking out going, won't something save us? And then she appeared.
But why are they even asking to be saved by something outside themselves?
If you're I'm going to say inferior race, as
most
of the auxiliaries are.
Yeah,
you're telling me the crude hounds are intelligent?
I know. No, look, It is my job. That's the bit we do here, Logan. It's the bit. Come on.
I'm actually not being funny. I'm legitimately being honest and right, and you're still fighting me.
I'm going to put a post-it note over your face.
Yeah, there we go. That's good. That and combined with the mute button, we can do wonders.
We got it. No, what we're going to say.
It would be really funny if you released a version of this podcast but had my audio muted, so there's just like a couple minutes of silence. And then you guys are like, dude, that's a horrible take. And he's like, what was the take? What was the take?
Redacted.
Yeah. No, what were you going to say? So no, truly, because I think it's interesting to imagine them crying out to something outside themselves. Why?
Well, because if you're not as grounded in science as the Tau are, like the Kroot are typically depicted more as I don't know how else to describe it, more primitive and savage with the way they do things. If you're a more primitive and savage thing, and the ship you're on that is suddenly not in space anymore, and now it's in the warp that they've never been in before, and the whole thing is shaking, it would make sense, because a lot of people just in general will cry out to a higher power whenever they're in trouble or scared. So it just feels to me that instance of so many auxiliaries freaking out all at the same time is what brought her from the one thing that only one Tau saw into a actual full goddess that was able to impact the immaterium and the materium.
Yeah.
Okay, I'll buy it.
Yeah.
That's good. Yeah, that's good. Cool. So if we go into now Commander Surestrike. So
what happened to him?
Yeah.
The leader of the fourth.
This is going to get interesting here. So Commander Surestrike, in time, his forces achieved success. And when the fifth sphere of expansion emerged from the other side of the Startide Nexus, Surestrike personally welcomed Commander Shadow Sun to the new Tau Bastion, nestled in the heart of Imperial space. See that, Logan? They're right in your heart. The experience within...
Always will be.
That's right.
Let him in.
Knock, knock. We're here.
I played Tau for a while. I actually do really like Tau. It's just fun to do this and mess with you guys.
I know.
Xenos
especially
lasers.
seeing you and Marcos play, it's so funny.
Oh, dude,
because he's playing Tau.
Hurts my soul though. Words hurt, man. Words hurt.
So there's a Tau goddess that if you pray, she can make your feelings better because she's all about the greater good.
Oh.
Okay, you've been paying attention. That's good. That's
good. So Surestrike personally welcomed Commander Shadow Sun to the new Tau Bastion, nestled in the heart of Imperial space. The experience within the warp, however, had transformed Surestrike in ways that no one had anticipated. Once a bright and hopeful commander, he now carried the weight of the horrors he had witnessed. His heart hardened and his outlook jaded. The once unshakable faith he had in the Tau cause, now stood in sharp contrast to the bitterness he harbored towards his own people. His disdain for the ethereals, long revered as the guiding force of the Tau, grew over time, and as he began to break the sacred taboo by speaking openly of his criticisms, a subtle rebellion against their authority. A subtle rebellion against their authority. His prejudice extended to the Tau auxiliaries as well, those whose faith had once been a beacon of hope. Surestrike blamed them for the disaster that had befallen the fourth sphere, their devotion to Tau Val marking them as the source of the catastrophe. During the battle of the Startide Nexus, Surestrike found himself in frequent conflict, not only with his non-Tau allies, but even with Commander Shadowsun herself. The tension between them grew as he became more determined to uncover the truth of what had happened to the fourth sphere. His growing disillusionment with the Tau leadership led On Law to temporarily place him as supreme commander of the Tau military forces, hoping to control his rising anger. But when Shadowsun emerged victorious against the Death Guard, the Ethereal Council swiftly reinstated her command, relegating Surestrike back to his former position. The weight of these events, however, had already shaped him into something new, someone who could no longer simply follow the path set before him, his soul burdened by the shadows of his past and the choices he had made. Oh, good. I love it. Conflict. Conflict. It's so good.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, like this can lead to a kind of the leader of the chaos faction of Tau potentially. You know, the ones that fully kind of give into that bloodletting, that kind of who cares about building an empire now? Let's do it for us.
Curious to see if, and maybe chat can jump in on this, but like I would so be curious to see if any like contact has been made or ties together between Surestrike and Farsight. Has that happened at all? Do we know of any moments where they have worked together?
Yeah, like the first battle that Surestrike was famous in was fighting against Farstrike in the Magdula Bay. Magulata.
Yeah, that was earlier. I think we talked about that. That was his claim to fame, was he fought with Fars. But you're asking after that?
Yes,
post that. Now
that he's kind of like, yeah, we're gonna say chaotic, but yeah, like now that his eyes are open to a different way of life,
disillusioned. He's disillusioned.
Yes,
I think that's just the first step down the path, of it all. So I think it's hard to say where Surestrike stayed, if he went back to the Tau Empire where Farsight and his empire would have been, or he would have stayed on the other side of the galaxy. And then there'd be no Farstrike interaction. He did set up like that whole fortress over on that side. So I'm sure he got a whole planet, I believe, that was very nice, or a palace on the planet. I forget what Shadowsun gave him, but we did mention something like that. So his home's definitely far away.
Yeah. Fuzz is mentioning in the chat that they don't think that any recent contact has happened. So that makes sense. And I'm just curious. I think it's a really cool story element that could happen with GW, is having these guys possibly work together in some way, of like, you were once my enemy. Now I've seen the horrors of what this new life is.
Yeah.
Let's see.
And then it leads to a conflict between them at the very end after they fought off the tower. Then they're like, now I can't tolerate what you're doing to the auxiliaries. And Farsight's like, well, let's get after it.
Yeah. Cool.
The ideology is breaking down, and more little versions of it are forming up and popping up. Very nice.
All right. It looks like I'm going to take us home here. So, excuse me. The Startide Nexus.
Yeah, so the final little piece, that is kind of where the story ends with all of them. We do have the Startide Nexus, which is like this object that we'll get into. That's now a big permanent feature of the galaxy. Pretty cool story overall, I think. I like that the Tau didn't create the god. It's definitely a bunch of Xenos created it, not the Tau.
I do like that you've been referring to the auxiliaries as Xenos, but not the Tau. like they aren't Xenos too. I've been noticing that subtleness this episode.
Just staying in character for this episode, Just
Yeah, he's on my team.
Xeno sympathizer for sure. Yeah, and the Startide Nexus. Now, this is a huge kind of thing that lots of games can revolve around. We got 2 kind of empires now that are starting to form up for the Tau Empire. So yeah, we can just have a couple more things happening.
Yeah. So the Startide Nexus is a newly formed vortex in the fabric of space, a shimmering gateway that stands as a stable bridge between the distant sept worlds of the Tau and the far-reaching Nemyar Atoll, nestled deep within the Imperium's domain. At first, the creation of the Nexus was a tragic accident, with the fleet of the Fourth Sphere expansion initiated a bold jump through the AL-38 slipstream module drives, hoping to escape the burning tides of the Damocles Gulf. They unknowingly set off a cataclysmic event. The AL-38 slipstream prototypes, untried in such numbers, fired simultaneously, tearing a rift in the warp itself. The fleet, once full of hope and promise, was engulfed by this tear. The Tau Empire, devastated, assumed that the Fourth Sphere was lost forever, mourning the fleet's tragic end. Yet, unbeknownst to them, the fleet would not perish, but had been stranded within the chaotic warp, preyed upon by demons, their future uncertain. It wasn't until the formation of the Great Rift that the Fourth Sphere's fragmented fleet was pulled from the warp by an unseen, powerful force. This miraculous escape caused the Startide Nexus to fully manifest, a doorway to another reality. As the Nexus materialized, the fleet emerged into real space, disoriented and uncertain of their location, but alive. Surestrike, the fleet's commander, led his people to settle and fortify several nearby worlds, unknowingly beginning the first steps of a new era. His forces turned their attention to the Nexus, seeking to protect their newfound home. 10 years after the Fourth Sphere had vanished, a drone sent through the Startide Nexus was discovered by the Tau Empire, confirming that the fleet had survived. The Empire, eager to reclaim their lost kin, began to strengthen their own side of the Nexus. But it wasn't until a recon probe returned with undeniable evidence of the fleet's survival that the Ethereal High Council authorized an expedition. The fifth sphere expansion, led by none other than Commander Shadowsun, was dispatched to venture into the Nexus. When Shadowsun and her forces emerged, they were greeted by the survivors of the Fourth Sphere, now reunited under her command. Together, they sought to expand the borders of the Nemyar Atoll, their presence bringing forth new sept worlds, including several once belonging to the Imperium itself. The Tau Empire seemed poised for further expansion. But their success would not last. Months into the expansion, a harrowing sight appeared. A vast Death Guard armada descended upon the Nemyar Atoll, while the Nexus with the Nexus as a potential gateway to the heart of the Tau Empire. Shadowsun and her forces were thrust into a desperate battle against the Chaos Invaders. The fate of the Nexus hung in the balance, and Shadowsun rallied her forces to prevent the Death Guard from gaining control of the passage that could spell the end of the Tau Empire. Once the Tau Empire's side of the Nexus, the region surrounding the anomaly, is so heavily fortified that it rivals the capital of the Tau itself. The entrance on the other side, leading to the unknown expanse of the Nemyar Atoll, is equally well guarded by the worlds that stand watch over the rift. The Startide Nexus, a pathway of hope and peril, remains as a symbol of both possibility and the ominous forces that now stir within its depths. That is such
so cool.
Yeah, that is. That's really like the Eye of Terror and Cadia kind of thing going on, but it's a much smaller scale, specific to the Tau Empire. Like, and I think Fuzz said this earlier, that there's a lot of comparisons between the Imperium, or parallels between the Imperium and the Tau Empire in the latest codex. This is just another one that the Imperium has this giant fortifications around the Eye of Terror. They have them around this Nexus. It's so cool. I love this. This makes me happy.
It's almost like
where the Tau have gone.
Yeah, where there's almost like an evolutionary path that you all take. You grow up, you create a star god, and you then fortify an empire against it. Seems like that's what all the races kind of do, and it's nice. Create some big bad evil you got to battle for the rest of your life. Yeah. I love how they just fortify both sides of this spot. Turn them into just these bastion fortification worlds, and I just picture their rail guns that are like locked onto where the hole of the gate is, that are shooting rail cannons from planets over through to the rift just to guard it.
Yeah, definitely. That's just, the whole thing is cool, and just, I know they're not played on the tabletop a lot, but the Tau defensive structures that they have, I'm just picturing them like floating in a ring around the thing with just giant rail guns pointing out so nothing can go through it. Just, it's so cool. I want to see visuals of this. I'm so happy.
Cool. Well, that's the end of the notes. We got our call-ins now, and we got some questions. Fuzz in the chat. You can come on board. Hey, welcome.
Hey, how's it going, everybody?
Hey, Fuzz.
Oh man.
Happy to be
So
here.
we got ourselves a Tau god on our hands. What are we gonna do about it? Are we gonna round it up and give it a beat down, or what?
Man, like there's so many things about Tauva, the goddess, like, oh my god, I'm just trying to like think where to start, because this is something I've been thinking about just for a while, like honestly ever since I read about her. But I do think that she's going to become like an integrated part of the Empire. If for no other reason than the ethereals are going to find the belief useful to help, keep the auxiliaries, happy. It's because they're such a big part of their army that if they can keep them happy, cool. And there's also clearly just tangible benefits. I mean, with her, making an entire part of a Death Guard fleet just lost in the warp, because she can do that. Like the way I put it in chat for for people listening is, it's like she grabbed their ship and was playing with it like a toy boat, like a kid in the bathtub, just do.
It's so cool. Yeah, like I definitely think she's going to become more and more prominent, and definitely that religious aspect will get played up. Like you said, it just is so useful. Such a useful tool in controlling a population just that much further.
Yeah, and like the Tau aren't like a religious species, and I don't know how religious any of the auxiliaries necessarily are, but what the Tau are very good at, and it's something that you guys have talked about before in previous Tau episodes, is the Tau are very good at taking something and finding a way to incorporate it into their society and use it to improve, their empire.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, like how many chances did they even give orcs before they're like, fuck, it's impossible.
Exactly.
So yeah, like they're gonna want to try to, like, now that they're aware of this whole nother dimension, it'll be funny for them to go and try to make demons with Khorne bloodletters.
That would be funny.
Join the Tau Empire, bloodletter.
Right.
This one doesn't seem to respond to us, but the Tauva, greater good goddess, this one seems to want to actually help us and make some deals.
Yeah, could the Tauva bring, more, I guess, intellectually inclined demons, like say of Tzeentch or something, over to the greater good, in that respect. And it might just be where Tauva is like the only warp entity around like the greater good, like thought form, and there are no, like breaking off of demons, like the ruinous powers break off into their little demon people. That it's just Tauva. I do love the idea that was brought up though of, if another species that's psychically connected joins the greater good, is she going to grow another arm? I think that is. I think that's absolutely hilarious. Like, but it's funny as like a thought experiment. It's just like, oh, now she's got 7 arms when I see her. But also, I think it truly would happen as this, god of community, god of coming together, that she would change her shape depending on what is influencing her.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's so interesting. Like, the god of unity that has so many different aspects vying for different things to happen. Each one of those hands, one is holding the quill and the other one's holding the sword, and you're just like, well, which hand are we using today for unity? Which Xenos brought which?
And that which is, I mean, absolutely something that the Tau have always done. Like, Hydra Logan was talking about it, sort of in jest, but also like the Tau are very much like I'll always liken the Tau to the Roman Empire, and they have that very much join or die mentality. Like they'll send their water caste people to talk to you because they want you to join the Tau Empire. They think that you're going to be beneficial to it. But if you don't, they can't have you as a threat out there to the greater good.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna jump on the Logan bandwagon real quick. So just appreciate it for a moment. We talk about Talva being like the goddess of unity, but we also mentioned that the warp is a like dark reflection upon real space. So what if it's the cosmic joke almost that there is no unity, that it continues to incorporate, like Fuzz, you were saying, like, does it get another arm? Like if it gets another Xenos race on its side, and it just becomes this mockery of like sword in one hand, pen in another, like, look, no, it's all unity, but none of it actually can really exist together, as we've seen in this Tau species itself. Like even them can't unite under the goddess of unity. So it's this mockery of like, no, we will all be united, and it's not happening.
And maybe
at what point is Talva gonna exactly cut off one of her own arms that no longer fits the vision of unity?
So I think I do think that is a really, really cool idea. So I guess to start from the beginning of like my thought process in this kind of a thing, I don't think that the warp is inherently evil. Like it is, it is a reflection of the material universe, but I don't think that inherently means that everything there is going to be antagonistic or evil. Like there have been episodes where you guys have talked about different warp creatures that are even just more passive. Like there are things that live in there, like like it's its own ecosystem. So I don't inherently think that any warp deity is necessarily a chaos deity. I do though think that could be a really interesting way forward, because just from an interesting story perspective, like conflict is always good for stories. That Talva doesn't become like a chaos evil god like the ruinous powers, but does keep pushing towards an extreme. And could even like kind of backlash influence the Tau, or even say the ethereals do actually have some psyker presence, and that's they're the only natural psykers in the Tau, even though we don't know that yet. And then it kind of feeds back into them as this, no, you really have to keep pushing the Empire. We have to bring everybody under our very nice boot heel. So not necessarily like evil, but like to a logical extreme.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Progress never stops.
Double cheers there. Unity in your guys' drinking. See that?
Yeah, I saw we both went for a drink at the same time. That was funny.
I love
See, Fuzz, you agree with me more than you think.
I honestly, I do. It is fun, going back and forth. But like you're saying, like the propaganda machine absolutely is going to play into the birth of Talva, because there is no greater good without the propaganda machine behind it, pushing that and convincing the auxiliaries to the Tau, to the basically the Tau version of Xenos, because if they're the Imperium right now. One thing I'd also been thinking about, and I think part of the message I sent to you, Mark, the other day, was we also don't know when Talva was born, because as again talked about in previous warp episodes, when a warp entity is created, they now exist all across time.
Oh yeah.
So was Talva created when the auxiliaries and the Tau of the Force Sphere went into the warp? I think that's a really cool idea, because it is a big touchstone moment in the Tau Empire's push forward. But because clearly Shadow Sun talks to Talva before that happens.
Like there's like the pregnancy stage, so to speak, and then the actual birth. And I think when that rip stream module opened up, that was the actual birth of it. But yeah, there's that lingering effect for a long time before.
Yeah.
That
or
would have just
also, so good.
that slowly just would have built from the very first time, like how made that deal with the ethereals, like let's all unite, and then they build a planet, they go to the first alien, unite with that one, the power grows just that much more.
Yeah. Do you mind if I go off on at least 3 different tangent ideas?
Yes, lay it on us.
So one of them, just like the kind of just the progression of where I was going with this is, Tau Va could have been created 4,000 years in the future, even say if the Tau do develop natural psychers. Like it could just be any kind of variation thereof. One thing with like the like ripping open the warp, or I guess 2 things. I guess kind of the way I had seen it was the force sphere became hostile towards the auxiliaries, partially because Tau Va showed up and they're like, oh shit, another fucking thing here. But also, the demon incursions, and in my mind, also those more psychically attuned auxiliaries could have become like corrupted and mutated by the other like chaos gods, and then like basically imagine like a Kroot all of a sudden becoming a Cornate Kroot and attacking their former Tau allies.
Yeah, exactly.
Like,
we
you're never
say
gonna
like,
trust
oh
them
yeah,
again.
the Tau turned. Yeah, the Tau turned. They couldn't hold it together. They were afraid. But yeah, the same thing could be said for all those Xenos in there. Yeah, how many humans just went mad and start rampaging?
Exactly.
That need to be put down. Yeah, for sure.
And the other one, like kind of related to like the birth of Tau Va, like what if Tau Va had been like in that kind of like gestational period as a warp deity, and them activating those slipstream drives and like ripping that hole through the warp, let's just say like caused her to be an early baby.
Okay, sure.
Like she's got enough juice to clearly like do stuff and
but
be a threat to her enemies.
She
but
doesn't
maybe
necessarily
isn't as powerful as she could have been.
Oh, she also
or she's not doesn't have the ability to summon demons. It doesn't seem like yet.
And she
so
can't
maybe
leave
that's
the
something
warp.
that she's.
The other chaos gods can leave the warp, can't they? But she can't, or hasn't.
That I don't know. I'm not a huge chaos person. I don't know. My chaos lore is very lacking, so I do not know.
That's a good point.
Can chaos gods leave the warp?
Yeah,
no, while the chaos gods are
technically
specifically this. Yeah, I don't know if they can leave the warp, chaos gods.
But then I guess it is just that she can't. Well, yet can't create demons. But I would have sworn they could leave.
Yeah, and
the warp.
One of my questions too that I wrote down was, what does her dominion look like? We know what the Garden of Nurgle looks like. We know what Khorne's blood lakes and lava look like. Maybe Tau Va doesn't have the ability to hold together a vast realm space, but just has that strength to hold herself together. She doesn't have her kingdom yet.
Or maybe like the Startide Nexus, like that wormhole, is as much of a like kingdom as she can manage right now.
Sure, and that's why she could like kind of throw that ship around and have dominion over it. Yeah.
So one other thing that I was thinking of, and this is kind of a more like weird, almost like nothing to do with Tau Va, but just like the Tau in general, is so like Logan was saying, some parallels between the Tau Empire and the Imperials. And I had been kind of noticing the same thing. I just finished reading the Tau 10th edition codex, putting on my own tinfoil hat, because so the ethereals came like out of left field, came out of nowhere. Basically like UFO light showed up and then the ethereal showed up. So like tinfoil
or warp lights.
Yeah, like tinfoil hat is that they were Tau who were abducted by basically like a last remnant like world, like not world ship, but like generational like seed ship from like the golden age of technology and humanity that like took them uplifted these primitive Tau into the ethereals and dropped them back down to like start a new version of the Imperium, but try to do it better or something like that.
Logan loves that idea.
The Imperium is perfect in every way, and I will hear none of this heresy.
Well, see, now it's better because the Tau don't ruin their ecosystems when they build their empire.
Allegedly, that's Imperium. That's
according to the Codex, which is written by the Imperium, they do not.
Allegedly.
Propaganda.
Propaganda. They built the Tau's propaganda machine is so strong it's infected the Imperial people writing it. I can cope my way out of anything.
That's
you
why
say
the Imperial
right
worlds fall to the Empire. It's true.
Allegedly. Wait, I've never seen this. It's never happened. The Imperium has never fallen to the Tau. How dare you?
Just on the God of Unity, like I wonder if it could have even been around kind of in its lingering phases before the Tau even kind of came, and the Tau just happened to be a good kind of manifestation to latch onto, a good kind of
ooh, that's a really cool idea.
Anchor point. So like, you know, those lights was actually like a Tau, or no, sorry, was Tau Va flown around whispering to the ethereals about unity. And this unity god was made, first of all, during the Great Crusade when the Emperor tried to unite humanity. Then it was made during some great fucking Eldar crusade or whatever. You know, there's a bunch of points all throughout history of every race tries to unify itself, essentially. So it's just all that kind of combines and then has chosen the Tau to kind of puppet with.
Yeah, because even we know, like back before like the Dark Age of technology, like when all of these worlds were settled by humanity, they were also much more like friendly towards Xenos, I believe. Like they would trade with them, and they would not necessarily like try to all again, like they weren't trying to make them all into a big empire like the Tower, but it was a much more friendly galaxy out there. Everyone was working together more. So yeah, that could, even especially because humanity was involved and has such a strong ability to affect the warp. Like it could even started back then too.
Yeah, for sure.
I like the idea of just this small, gentle soul being Tau Va, just floating through the warp, having nowhere to go, just fed from the little bits of hope that people give it when it can. And all these giant ruinous powers fed off of the easier to capture emotions of anger or whatever. And she's just floating through the warp like, won't someone notice me? And then she found Shadow Sun, who gave her enough to hang on. And then the auxiliaries pushed her into in the Immaterium. I like that kind of that hope that she could symbolize.
Oh yeah, because especially in 40K, having hope, just that's a hot commodity right there.
100%.
Cool. Do you have any other thoughts there, Fuzz? Any other?
I think I've gotten them all out.
This?
Is there anything else, like anything that you guys want to like yell at me as someone that loves the town? We'll talk about them forever.
Yeah, I got some questions here. I think we answered a lot of them, but Logan, go for it first.
Oh, I was going to say, I want to thank you, Fuzz, because you were actually really helpful in chat with the insights you were giving, even when I was really wrong. I love that you were able to like, actually, this is this and this is this. I'm like, oh, okay. Because
I don't want to be like the actually guy, but especially when talking about the lore, sometimes like the finer points are important.
No,
we need it.
You were not the actually guy. You were the helpful guy. Like, it's this.
Thank you.
Mean this. This is what you're looking for. Like, you had the answers we were fishing for throughout most of this episode, and I appreciate that. And everyone who's listening on Spotify should join the Imperial Tithe so they can see these live and see when Fuzz is helping 100%. Us, because it is so much easier to see what's going on when you could read chat as we talk about this.
What if I'm a filthy Xenos and I listen on Apple Podcasts?
We don't leave a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts.
We don't need to. Are we going to be? Wait? Is this where we mute Court? Are we meeting Court now? Is that what's happening?
Yeah.
Dig it.
Cool. Yeah, all my questions I feel like we answered pretty good. Like, what's the Tau Va's governing, driving, feeding emotion? It's like unity, maybe a dash of hope in there. Togetherness.
There we go. Yeah, the god of Kumbaya.
Yeah, exactly. What would Tau Va's realm look like in the warp? Like we kind of said, it doesn't really have one fully yet, potentially. What do you think such a realm would look like?
So I think the realm would look like a Tau world because a lot of the worlds have sort of like dome cities on them, and you'd have like a dome city of each of the member races of the greater good kind of represented there.
Yeah, and everything's just moving perfectly in unison. Like, it's the perfect city.
To add another, I guess, nerdy reference, so like thinking about like Dungeons and Dragons and like the different planes of existence in D&D, there's like the plane of law, and how everything there, like in some of those like lawful planes, things are literally well-oiled machines, like working kind of like that. Everything like working in harmony together.
Yeah, I was thinking that too, where this world would have no, there would be no odds. Everything is even. Everything is harmonious. Everything has to be synchronistic. There can be no outlying factor, and that's what becomes the kind of the taboo there.
The dark side of it.
Yeah. There, it has to be symmetrical. It has to be this. It has to have some sort of form to it that is complementary. Yeah. Interesting.
It's demons. Her demons. Do we have any thought what they might look like? Like, I feel like definitely in the forms, like they'd look very much like real Xenos creatures. So the Kroot would be very crudish, but it's now it's all covered in quills. So it's like warp variations of existing Xenos potentially.
I can see that. The other thing I was thinking of is like one of the philosophies in the greater good is using every member species to its fullest potential. And so like the goddess could almost like pick and choose these demons are going to do these things, so I'm going to give them these attributes from the different greater good species to do this. So like, maybe they have the hooves of the Tau because they're going to, for like stability and toughness, and they've got the quills,
what I was thinking.
Quills of the Kroot and the Vespid wings, so they can fly just a little bit. All the cool things that each of them got.
Yeah, or just like shifting between everything that it needs in the moment as it gains a new species, it gains a new ability. Yeah, awesome. It's just shifting. Yeah.
Yeah, because that would be interesting too. Because like, what happens when you incorporate another Xeno species that has wings, and so that is greater than the Vespids? So now the Vespid wings on these demons are no longer optimal, and so now they have to shift to become something else.
Cut it off. This is the fun part about this mindset of Unity. You can just cut it off.
Cut your wings off.
Right, just rip your wings off and then grow fins or whatever. I don't know. Whatever you need.
Yeah. And the final question is, how do you feel about this introduction of the 5th Chaos God, potentially, of this Chaos God? Maybe it's the 6th.
Right, because I know. I mean, I guess first off, I don't mind. I think just like these settings and stories just sometimes need some sort of natural progression to mix things up a little bit. Because there's the ruinous powers, and then I know GW I think confirmed like Gork and Mork as like chaos entities. And now we've got Tauva, and like I feel like I heard somewhere that at least like it's theorized that even like the Emperor is going to be a warp entity, or like has been having like warp entity powers and stuff. So it could be as much as like 7 or 8, I guess, like warp gods or whatever you want to call them.
Yeah,
I think the idea there's. Sorry, go ahead, Mark.
No, you go for it.
I think that it's cool to have distinguish between these two. Like Fuzz, you talk about the ruinous powers, and I think those being the chaos gods themselves, and there's still being a difference between chaos gods and warp gods, and that chaos gods are warp gods, but warp gods are not necessarily chaos gods.
Yeah, like we're almost birthing gods of order now. Like we got Yanid, where death is the ultimate order.
Yeah.
We got this god of unity, a very orderly god. Maybe it comes out with a couple more. Yeah.
I mean, they mean the Emperor. If the Emperor did become like a warp entity, like a warp presence,
that would be
absolutely a very like lawful, orderly, personification there.
Yeah. No, so that's a good point. Yeah, like we won't get any more chaos gods, but we're definitely getting more warp gods.
Yeah. How do you guys feel about, like, I guess the idea of like balance in 40K? Because like one thing I talked, I think this was in the Discord I was talking to people about, or it might have been in the live chat one episode, was like in the Diablo franchise, there is like kind of a balance between like the entities that rule over the heavens and hells, and like they're always in this eternal stalemate. And so like do you think that's like, it almost sounds like maybe the warp is kind of moving towards that a little bit, if they're adding sort of like another, say, like pantheon of warp gods?
No, I don't, because if we include Gork and Mork and Tovao as warp gods, you have one that's kind to the people who worship her, and then you have two more that are just about violence. And the initial 4 ruinous powers. So it's not really balancing out so much, but they are adding, it's like spice. It's a little salt in there, something a little different than just, oh, it's another god that craves violence.
Yeah, like a more like,
I'll
well,
have you know, Gork and
out.
Mork isn't the god of violence. It's the god of fun. First of all.
Oh yeah, 100%. 100%. But
the god of cunning brutality and the god of brutal cunning. That's all.
Yeah, violence
fun.
just happens to be fun.
It's great fun.
Yeah.
Well, what is balanced too? Like what is, I think, fleshed out, like you said, Fuzz, is probably the best way to put it, is like different aspects, and nothing will be in perfect balance, but there will be more of a complete spectrum, if you will.
Yeah.
And at times
like
things
that.
will shift. You know, it's like it's just creating more colors on the wheel, kind of.
Yeah.
I like that it's more bad than good. I don't want the universe.
A little nervous at first when you hear about a Tau god.
The bark drop.
Oh,
we were doing so well.
He's frozen in all his beauty right now. Look at that.
I know.
Oh, there you go.
Hey, there we go. I was like, this happened the last time I called into.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Well, I think that's the end of the episode. Fuzz, thanks for joining in.
Thank you for having me for so long. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Fuzz.
Yeah. All right.
Chat says you got sucked into the warp.
But I'm back. You know, I didn't create my own chaos gods out there. I'm not powerful. I'm just one man. But yeah, it's a lot of fun learning about this entity. I was a little sour at first, but ultimately I think I've come around to being like, it opens up a lot of cool new story possibilities for sure. Whether you have Tauva worshipping Tau now, whether you have Chaos Tau, a sure strike, and they go down this dark path, or whether you just have the fourth sphere Tau and them just hunting down Xenos maliciously, and they don't try to make negotiations at all. It really opens up a lot of new little story opportunities.
Yeah, this was a super fun episode, and I like the direction the Tau is going in. It makes them, I mean, admittedly, I'm not that familiar with the Tau lore, but it makes them more through-dimensional than the way I perceived them before. So I've really liked this episode a lot.
I think it brings a lot of cool, fun options and opportunities to the table too. A lot of possibilities, like we said earlier, just like creating a Tau-Va force, and hopefully we can see that reflected with GW's, push on Tau, and maybe seeing new detachments or something like that. That would be a rule set that would kind of promote this in the story.
Yeah. I'm just thinking what rules would be like. That would be simple. You just can combine squads together, so you got fire warriors next to Vespid and stuff. Like, could be a simple and easy way to do it.
Like how the Death Watch plays, because you can mix the different space. Like normally it's Infernus Marines and Interceptors, but now you can put them together in the Death Watch. It'd be the same kind of thing. Has to have 10 models. They all have to be on the same base, but it could be whichever Tau things they are.
Yeah, very cool. Yeah, lots of cool stuff. Well, that's the show. We'll do some end notes and then Patreon. If you like homebrew, Lorehammer listener, lore podcast, go check it out. It's been a lot of fun recording. Some people have even just recorded lore that they've done themselves and send it to me, and I've uploaded that for them. So if you want to share your lore, send it in to Lorehammer Listen to Lore podcast. Yeah.
And if you want to hear more of my ranting and raving and whatnot, you can check out the Funkatronic Rex podcasts, funkatronicrex.com. You can check it out there. We're on Apple, Spotify. We talk about a bunch of different things, from D&D, BattleTech, Warhammer. We had Mark on as a guest, which was our first intro together. So it was fantastic. I want to take just a brief moment here, and I just got something that I'm very excited about. I got something in the mail. And I've been wanting this for a long time because it really brings me back to when I first started playing 40K. And it's not 3rd edition. It's not 3rd edition, but it is Inquisitor.
Oh man,
dude, old school Inquisitor core rulebook here, and it is in
so that's for
condition.
like the RPG, right?
Yeah, it's like the tabletop.
Yeah.
It's kind of RPG whatnot, but you're using minis. It's 40 mil scale, I think. But this, I remember seeing this in GW when I was like 16, so this is pretty cool. I'm very excited. I'm not necessarily going to be jumping in and playing, but like it's filled with John Blanche artwork, and I'm fucking psyched. And the other thing is, I was just on Mercari, and I just pick up a bunch of 40K stuff every now and then, like that book. And I got the 8th edition codex, which I never played, but this thing was super cheap. And the lady that sold it to me online, it's from her late husband's collection. And I don't necessarily know the story of what happened with him and whatnot, but his name was Dan. He played orcs, space marines, and specifically blood angels. I ask about that. And so it's just really cool to have like a piece of 40K that I never played. Was kind of the introduction to the Primaris. And as you can see on the back.
Sure.
But I love adding more 40K history to my collection, and especially because this was loved by somebody who played and loved the game and is no longer with us. So if anybody is,
you can probably clone him with Cheeto prints on there and stuff. Clone him with that.
Yeah, this is great, man.
No, that's sweet. That Inquisitor book is such a cool find, man. I always wanted to get the 40 mil Death Watch hero that came with that, but you could never fucking find it. And when it was on like eBay or whatever, it was like $400 to get. When I was looking, it's like, oh my god.
Yeah, I have an alert on my Mercari for when they come up, so I think I snagged this for only like $25. This book is solid. So anyways, wild. Very so a little tangent, but I'm excited.
Cool.
That's awesome. Yeah, and if you like my hot bad takes and think I'm funny, you can come check me out on YouTube at Hydra Thoughts. I've got a channel where we talk about cryptids, conspiracies, and religious mysteries. So if you want to come hang out and have some fun, check me out.
Boom.
Yeah, cool. All right, final shout out. Shout out to our Patreon members in the last couple of days. We got Warper, Little Tree 24, Kenner, Oliver, Ellis, and Catch. Wow, thank you guys all so much for joining the Patreon. Every dollar helps keep the show going. And life's good that way. Life's very nice that way. Cool. Well, thanks, boys. We'll see you guys on the next week. I think next time you guys are on, we're talking Emperor's Children and Fulgrim.
Let's go!
I knew it. I knew Logan was going to be psyched about that.
In the other Discord, I've been posting for Funkatronic Rex. I've been posting nonstop every leak that's coming out about the Emperor's Children, and they just revealed the silhouette of Lucius, and I'm like, "Let's go!" Because that was after once I accepted Chaos and played Death Guard for a little bit, and I learned more about the Emperor's Children. I'm like, "Oh, I'm playing the wrong faction. That's a lot more fun." So I'm so stoked. I'm so excited I get to be part of that episode.
Yeah, it's going to be fun. We'll go a whole 4 episodes on that little series, and should be a lot of fun. So see you guys on that episode. Adios.
Cheers.
Catch you later, guys.